Hello there, Vampyres! Bunneh here, and welcome to another 7 Days to Die challenge video. Following the full release of the game with version 1.0, I thought it would be interesting to spend 100 days on insane difficulty exploring all that the game has to offer. Now, unlike the other challenge videos on my channel, I'm allowing myself the luxury of death in this one. I plan on approaching this challenge efficiently and aggressively, which simply wouldn't be possible if I was constantly struggling to survive or unwilling to take risks. My goal is to get as far into the game as possible within the 100 days, with emphasis on efficient horde days, base building, gear upgrades, and mission completions. If that sounds interesting to you, then grab a drink, sit back, and enjoy my 100-day struggle in the zombie apocalypse. I started my journey with gathering up some basic resources and crafting a bunch of starter gear. For the record, this footage is not sped up. Looking back on it, I'm pretty sure I was sweating over my keyboard the entire time, but that's just the OSRS player in me shining through. My goal here was to give myself as much to work with as possible and complete the first series of challenges. Completing these challenges not only gave me a bunch of XP, but also revealed the location of the nearest trader. I invested my 4 attribute points as intelligently as possible and started hauling my ass to Trader Rex. He's an asshole, but just like my asshole, he's the only one that I've got. He gave me a stone shovel and offered me the Intro to Buried Supplies mission. I discovered these mausoleums only a few hundred feet from Rex, and decided, you know what, this would actually make for a great base. Now the neighbors didn't make the task easy, especially since I had such shitty weapons to work with, but I persevered. The inside of this church was literally perfect to make a little base out of. I slapped down some storage boxes and spent a few minutes cleaning out the interior. I placed down a land claim block, a sleeping bag, and a campfire before spending the remainder of the night clearing out the courtyard. I began the new day by fixing my door situation. Climbing through a pile of rubble to get into my base every time was turning out to be quite annoying, so this had to happen. Once that was done, I started heading towards the buried supply mission. The neighbors weren't having it, but neither was I. Now this mission sucked donkey balls. The stone shovel was terrible at digging, which is ironic because it's literally its only job. All in all, though, it was a very easy mission, albeit frustrating. I headed back to Trader Rex to turn it in, and took the pipe shotgun bundle as my reward. I wasn't entirely sure which melee weapon I wanted to run with yet, but I was positive that I wanted to roll with a shotgun. The next mission location at the Owens residence was literally just across the street from my main base. Now I can't show you guys everything that happens on missions like this because there's just simply not enough time. Just know that combat is almost always a struggle. Enemies hit hard and constantly apply negative effects. This vulture, for instance, applied a bleed on me, which if I didn't cure as quickly as I did, would have killed me in only a few seconds.
That's a lot of damage!
I found the White River supplies fairly quickly, but I wanted to fully clear this house before leaving. I took all of their dining room chairs, because fuck those chairs, and used door tricks like this to conserve ammo. The final loot room contained an armored double pocket mod and a pipe rifle, both of which were pretty solid rewards for a tier 1 mission. Unfortunately, it was too late to turn in the quest since the trader closes at nightfall, so I spent the remainder of the night clearing out more of my courtyard and making repairs to the base. The next morning, I turned in my completed quest for a jar of honey and accepted the next fetch mission at the Powell residence. I noticed this charred wood lying around and decided to harvest some for some charcoal. The basement cellar door was the only way into the house, and the homeowners were not happy about my intrusion. Clearly, the wife used to be smoking hot. Get it? Anyways, this fight took a little bit of finesse to get through. I had to cycle through pretty much every weapon at my disposal before finally reaching the final loot room.
What the?
I found a 2x scope mod in this chest, which went splendidly with that new pipe rifle. I went back to Rex and turned in that quest for a crafting skill magazine bundle. Like a lot of things in this video, I'm going to have to gloss over most of the magazines that I end up finding for the sake of saving time. Just know that I'm consuming every single one that I come across, and often I go out of my way to loot airdrops or mailboxes in order to find them. On the way to the next mission, I came across some stacks of tires, which are incredible for scrap polymer. I wanted to make a dew collector in the near future, so this was a great find. Flash forward a bit, and I'm at the Gilbert residence. All in all, this mission went pretty smoothly. I frequently cycled between my rifle and shotgun, and managed most fights without difficulty. The only exception to this was when I got cornered and this zombie landed a hit to concuss and infected me, but luckily my shotgun blast took him down, and I had that jar of honey on me to cure the infection. Now, I won't claim that this mission was easy, and in fact it often kept me juggling multiple zombies at the same time, but I figured it out. The final loot room had some more magazines and a structural brace mod for one of my tools. I wasn't very far from base, but it was nighttime and I didn't want to risk aggroing zombies outside, so I decided to stay in for the remainder of the night. The next morning, I headed back to Trader Rex and claimed another crafting magazine bundle as my reward. I decided to spend some hard-earned dukes on a gatherer, which is a modification for the dew collector that increases the rate that it gathers water. Speaking of which, it was about time I crafted one. Water is absolutely crucial not only for survival, but also for lots of items I would need to craft later. The next mission is at the old creepy church, not to be confused with the mausoleums that I built my base at. Now I'm not gonna lie, I cheesed most of the fights with this really glitchy spot by the broken window, but sometimes I shanked a bitch, and sometimes I played some door tricks. At one point I received a loot drop of 2 vehicle magazines, which taught me how to make bicycles and wheels? Whatever the hell those are? To say that this was a godsend is an understatement. Walking to each of these missions was brutal, so making this bike was my new top priority. The final loot room gave me another armor double pocket mod, which was a much better reward than the shitty options that Rec gave me. The dew collector managed to accumulate a full supply of murky water while I was away, and I wanted to show a clip of me looting it for the first time. While I'm hardly going to show it moving forwards, take note that I'm looting this thing pretty much every single time I return to base. Murky water has to be boiled into clean water before I can drink it, until I get a water filter later down the line. While I would love to say I had a quiet, peaceful night at base, I would be lying. I came under siege at a pretty awkward time, but luckily my stone walls held up just fine. Oh yeah, and I found this pistol. I also placed down my first farm plot of what would end up being my new garden. Day 5 began with research. I wanted a bike, but in order to craft one, I needed a forge and a workbench. While I could have managed to scrape together the resources for these stations, I wasn't high enough level in workstations yet to make them. I scrapped a bunch of tires and made my way to the next mission at Robert's Tack Shack. I used my bow to pull off a sneak attack on this fat zombie and got a good laugh out of what happened next. I relied on my bow a lot during this mission actually, as opening with a sneak attack is really the best option for starting a fight. I took all of their kitchen chairs and shattered all their family portraits, but they got the last laugh since I didn't have any lockpicks yet. I found the White River supplies in the basement and looted an Ironbreaker mod in the final loot room, which would end up being a mod that I used on my tools until the very end of the game. There was a gun safe sitting down here in the basement, but once again, I didn't have any lockpicks, so they win again. I started the long journey back to Rex and took a Wasteland Treasures Volume 4 as my reward option. I knew I couldn't reach the next mission location before nightfall, so I opted instead to begin clearing out the building next to my HQ. It was going well until I stepped on some loose floorboards and fell to the floor.
Oh my god.
Everything happens for a reason though, and I was able to drink this nasty basement water to check off another challenge. It was getting too late to finish clearing the rest of this building though, so I decided to head back to base for the night. Once the new day began, I set course for the next mission location at the Presley Dwellers. Burns and Bleeds were the name of the game here. I used doors strategically where I could, and pulled off the occasional sneak attack with my bow when it was appropriate. Oh god, get your nasty face off my new kitchen chair. Anyways, the final loot room was pretty lackluster, minus this rad mod that I could use later on. Before I could even appreciate the loot though, an entire horde of zombies heard the commotion and started pouring into the basement, so it was time to bounce. Rect offered me some pistol ammo as a reward, I banked my inventory at my base, and set course for the next mission at the Pass and Gas store. Burns and Bleeds were still my best option early on, so I stuck with them. I thoroughly tore apart this gas station for loot, and used a combination of sneak attacks, door trickery, and loads of pistol bullets to take down this zombie dog. It turns out that like most things, they're allergic to lead. I got a bit of a scare here when the floor gave out on me, but I was able to save myself by quickly building out.
Whoa, my god.
The final loot room was terrible, and these crawling enemies were annoying, but I completed the mission and snuck my way back to base with the cover of nightfall. I also unlocked the pure mineral water recipe, which ended up being my drink of choice for the remainder of the challenge. I found this deer stuck in my neighbor's deck railing and decided to capitalize on the situation with a combination of sledgehammer hits and bone knife shanks. It did start to get away though, so I resorted to the pistol. It turns out that just like zombie dogs, deer are allergic to lead. Everything is allergic to lead. Trader Rect offered me some rifle ammo for that quest I completed, and I decided to purchase a Forged Ahead magazine from his shop to finally unlock the forge. While I wanted to go and craft it and get some metal smelting up, I had more important things on the agenda. You see, this was the 7th day, and if you're unaware, that means that a massive, never-ending horde of zombies was about to come barreling towards me at nightfall. While I had plans to make a zombie defense bunker at some point during this challenge, I hadn't found the time to do it yet, so I had to improvise. This giant sign outside of Trader Rex was going to be my first Horde Night bunker, but I had to make some modifications to make it work. The stone axe didn't make my life any easier, but it was getting the job done just fine. I even gave myself an escape route here in case things went south and I had to bail. Basically, the zombies would all try to climb this ladder, and I could stand off to the side and damage them as they climbed up. I tried the sledgehammer at first, but found the spear to be much more effective due to its range. Everything was going splendidly until the zombies started breaking apart the ladder, and I had to make some split-second repairs to keep things moving. Now this structure was ugly as sin, and obviously riddled with flaws, but ultimately it did work the way I intended it to. Fast forward through an entire night of this, and I end up surviving the first Horde night. Now there were still a ton of zombies alive after the night ended, but ain't nobody got time for that! An airdrop landed off in the distance when I was working on that Horde base, and these things can often have really useful items. This one had some food, a crafting magazine bundle, and a tier 2 pipe rifle, so all in all, pretty good. I made my way to the next mission location at the cook's residence, and even though I was trying to get used to the sledgehammer, it just wasn't for me. It felt slow and always tanked my stamina, so I began leaning towards the spear more than anything else. This section of the mission was a bit sketchy because I had to drop into a room without being able to see what was inside. I've completed this mission in the past though, and I know that the floor is weak in certain sections, so I approached with caution. Door tricks, bleeds, and headshots led me to victory here, and I was able to loot a bunch of meds, ammo, and armor from the final loot room. Rekt offered me the Night Stalker Volume 3 as my reward, but my sights were always on something else. I spent some dukes on a few mechanical parts and a Scrapping for Fun magazine to finally unlock the wrench. I was getting sick of always having to walk the whole way around my perimeter wall every time I returned home from Rekt's, so I spent a few minutes breaking through the wall to craft a doorway. This fucking hole would be going soon too, but there's only so many hours in a day. I crafted the forge and placed it down inside my base to get some iron smelting. It was at this point that I fully committed to the spear as my primary melee weapon. I was saving these attribute points until I made a final decision, and now that they were spent, there was no going back. I crafted the wrench with that iron that I smelted up, and spent the rest of the night safely in my base. I still needed 5 more Forged Ahead magazines in order to craft the workbench, but now that I had a wrench in my hands, I could gather all the materials I would need for it when the time came. I started heading for the next mission location at a place called the Dollhouse, and began immediately tearing apart their washer and dryer. Good luck cleaning your clothes now, idiots. I used the typical methods of sneak attacks and numerous stabby stabs to wipe out all the zombies, and found the White River supplies in the back room. Then I harvested all of their corn, shoveled all their fertilizer, tore apart their hydroplanters, destroyed their radiator, fucked up their hot water tank, and took their houseplants.
Alrighty then.
I found some more shotgun shells in the final loot room, and decided to tear apart their pickup truck as one final fuck you to this family in particular. Rekt gave me some lockpicks for my success on that mission, but he didn't stop there. He had one more additional reward for completing enough Tier 1 quests to move up to Tier 2, and let's just say it was pretty sweet.
Oh my god.
That's right, he gave me a bike. This sped things up tremendously and would end up saving me a ton of time and resources. I rode it all the way to the next mission location at the Purser residence and was immediately confronted by a zombie dog. Luckily, I made it up on top of this truck and was able to take him down with a few rifle shots. The rest of this mission was pretty straightforward. Lots of kiting, lots of stabby stabs, and a few rifle shots here and there just for good measure. I found a few armor crafting kits in the final loot room and rode back to base for the night before it got too dark. I spent the rest of the night fully digging out the area that would eventually become my garden, but I didn't have anywhere close to the materials needed to craft all the farm crop plots. I was able to craft 3 of them though, and got some crops growing for the first time. I rode my bike over to Rekt's and turned in that mission for a crafting skill magazine bundle. Because I had advanced to Tier 2 missions now, he offered me an opening trade routes quest that would take me to Trader Jen. Now this chick was over 2.4 kilometers away, which was no small journey for a tiny Bunneh. This bike ride took literally over half the day, taking me across cities, through forests, over mountains, down long winding roads, and even through a burnt forest before I finally reached her. Now, Trader Jen is hot as hell and easily the most pleasant trader in the entire game. Of course, there are 2 good reasons why my opinion is so skewed. Anyway, she gave me a crafting skill magazine bundle as a reward, and I bought 3 sharp stick magazines off her while I was here. Now, just because I like Trader Jen doesn't mean that I'm stupid. I robbed this bitch blind. There's just no 2 ways about it. I also tracked down an airdrop and found another magazine bundle and a bundle of melee weapon mods inside. I ended up getting the Serrated Blade mod and the Burning Shaft mod from this bundle, which are honestly 2 really solid damage mods to find. Riding back to base this late in the day would have been suicide, so I opted to build my way on top of Jen's sign for the night. I crafted a new Tier 5 stone spear to put those mods on, completed some more challenges, and simply bided my time until morning. A coyote attacked me first thing in the morning, but just like that deer and that zombie dog, it was allergic to lead. I hopped on my bike and started a long journey back to main base, but had a bit of an epiphany along the way. 2 of them, actually. 2 epiphanies at the same time, which is like every man's fantasy. The first epiphany was about these rotten corpses. I needed rotten flesh to craft more farm crop plots, so I figured it was in my best interest to harvest these things along the way. The second epiphany was about mailboxes. They have a very high chance of containing magazines, and given that I was still a few Forged Ahead magazines short of that workbench, I figured I should take the time to loot as many as I could find. The bike made it easy to drive between mailboxes and loot them quickly, which was working out great until this happened. I bounced back though and got back to work on looting mailboxes until the late evening. Unfortunately, I didn't find a single Forged Ahead magazine, but it was still definitely worth the effort for everything else I unlocked. Plus, I was able to craft 11 farm crop plots with the resources I harvested, which was about a fourth of my garden complete. Lastly, I slapped down 2 of those plants that I stole from those stupid fucks at that dollhouse a few days ago. God, I hate those guys! Those mother bitches over there! Day 12 began with me heading straight to the next quest location at the film fanatic's house. It's worth pointing out here that I almost always took the time to harvest stacks of resources like this cement as I completed missions, as I knew I would need them later down the line. I managed to find this wall safe in the closet, and actually had some lockpicks to pick at this time, although 9 shotgun shells wouldn't get me very far. I stabbed some zombies, stole all their dining room chairs because fuck these chairs, fought a vegan in the kitchen, and discovered the final loot room in the basement. This mission was incredibly rewarding, giving me a new scavenger chest piece, but more importantly, 2 legendary parts. These were used to craft the highest tier items in the game, and became extremely valuable later down the line. This larger gun safe also had a pipe machine gun, but if I'm being honest, it really wasn't even worth wasting the ammo to use it. I rode my bike back to Trader Rex, where he offered me 30 shotgun shells as a reward, and a follow-up reward of 2 Tools Digest magazines for completing another series of challenges. I decided to buy a tarp mod for my dew collector and an iron fire axe since I knew I was going to be harvesting a lot of resources over the next few days. I slapped that tarp on my dew collector and pedaled my way to the next mission location at the Hessness residence. The floor gave out on me and almost gave me a heart attack, but I ended up using this to my advantage to get gap and reload at times. This zombie mom straight up kicked my ass in the attic, but I eventually reached the final loot room for a mediocre reward. I did manage to find another Sharp Sticks magazine, which officially unlocked the Iron Spear. A few more rifle bullets finished off the mission, and I made a ballsy decision to ride back to base during the night so I could craft my new spear for the morning. It was day 13, and I had some work to do. Trader Rex sign simply wasn't going to hold up through another Horde night, and I wanted to start working on a more permanent solution. To do that, I needed a lot of wood, hence the iron fire axe. I turned in that quest for a magazine bundle and got right back into cutting down trees. I got sidetracked here and there when a few airdrops came down, but it was absolutely worth it. This bundle of weapon mods contained 3 really dope attachments for all of my firearms, and I ended up looting a total of 3 Forged Ahead magazines from all these bundles. Plus, I found a claw hammer, which was fortuitous considering I was about to do a lot of building. While heading back to base to bank, this happened.
Oh my god.
For those of you who don't know, Screamer zombies are incredibly dangerous. One Screamer can lure in hordes upon hordes of zombies, and wouldn't you know it, there were 2 in this area. I quickly found myself becoming overwhelmed and had to resort to the pistol to clear them out. Just when I thought I was done, 2 more showed up at the back of my base, and then 1 more showed up for good measure. What the fuck is going on? It was becoming evident that this was a losing battle. It was getting close to nighttime, and if I was still stuck fighting all these zombies, I was surely going to die. I retreated to the sign outside of Rex, thinking I could hold up here for the night, and then this happened.
Oh my god.
I quickly popped some steroids for the movement speed boost and retreated to the house next to my main base. Once the coast was clear, I returned to base for the remainder of the night. That, my dear viewers, was a humbling experience. So Horde Day was here, and I had plans. Before starting this challenge, I did some research on how to make a solid Horde base. I knew that I couldn't build the thing all at one time, so I wanted to make something that I could easily upgrade and modify as the challenge progressed. That's when I came across this creator by the name of Village T. I hope I'm saying that right. He made 2 videos showing how to construct a never-ending looping Horde base that was melee-friendly. I'm going to put links to those 2 videos in the description below so you can give him some love. His designs ended up being crucial to me actually completing this challenge. The idea is that the zombies only have 1 access point to get to me, and when they reach that point they get pushed off by other zombies and are forced to try again. Now I did end up making a couple changes to this original design throughout the challenge, the first of which being these wooden spikes on the roof to combat vultures. I upgraded all of the blocks that I thought were necessary to cobblestone, began digging out a trench for the zombies to fall into, and placed some trapdoors around the interior for extra protection. As an added precaution, I placed an additional corner pole block along the edge where the zombies will be attacking me. I finished the base just in time for the horde and pray that this design actually worked the way it was intended. Fortunately, I built everything correctly and the base worked flawlessly. Zombies began pouring across this pole walkway, and every time they reached me, they either fell off or were knocked off by my attacks. Most of them would end up dying to my burns or bleeds, but I also threw in some occasional rifle shots or pistol bullets to thin out the herd. And just like that, I've survived another horde night. Best of all, I now had this sweet horde base that could be easily repaired, upgraded, and modified as I needed to. I found this pair of Enforcer sunglasses in a zombie bag, and stats be damned, I'm putting these things on. I rode my bike to the next mission location at the McLevin residence, and let's just say I wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. Sure, there were a few zombies lingering about, but my levels of concern rose when I heard the growling of a zombie dog. No big deal, right? My pistol can handle it. Or so I thought.
What the fuck? What the
So yeah, I died. But can we all agree that that death was complete bullshit? I mean, 5 zombie dogs? Are you shitting me? After reviewing this footage, I'm very confident there was nothing I could have done differently to survive. These zombie dogs weren't even part of the mission, but rather just a passing horde that spawned in. There were no video or audio cues to help me prepare ahead of time, and they attacked me at the most inopportune moment in waist-deep water. If I'm being entirely honest, I was really trying to make this a no-death challenge like I've done in previous videos, but after this experience, I basically said fuck it. I wanted to play aggressively, I wanted to tackle harder and harder missions, and I didn't feel that I could do that if I was constantly fearing death. Plus, if bullshit like this can happen, I'm basically never safe. So after thinking things over for a minute, I decided to respawn, retrieve my gear, and continue the good fight. Originally, I was going to finish clearing out this building, even going as far as taking all their dining room chairs, but then I realized it's a waste of time. Those dogs taking me out aborted the mission that I was on, so I headed back to Rex to grab a new one. His inventory had since reset, which enabled me to buy an iron pickaxe while I was there. I crossed my fingers and headed to the next mission location at the Federal Appliance. I found tons of magazines here and had no issues wiping out all the zombies. It's almost like if I know what I'm going up against, I can prepare and strategize? Huh, weird. Anyways, I took all their fucking office chairs, found a ladder leading to the rooftop, hip-fired a vulture in the face, and found the White River supplies buried in the ventilation system. I got back on my bike just in time for nightfall and went home to find my garden fully grown. Unfortunately, feat points or farmer gear was kind of necessary to make this worthwhile, but I digress. Although this day was a mess and I was feeling pretty bummed out about that unfortunate demise, there was one shining event that lifted my spirits. I finally found enough Forge Ahead magazines to craft the workbench, giving me access to a whole new array of building structures, vehicles, weapons, and armor. It took pretty much all night to craft, but once it was done, it was glorious. I had my eyes on one of these roll-up garage doors as my main entrance into the base, but I didn't pull the trigger on it just yet. I turned in that quest for 5 Molotov cocktails, hopped on my bike, and headed to the next mission at Aldo's Cabinet Store. It was actually a pretty sweet little storefront. I know from personal experience that all of this shit is really expensive, so it felt good to spray it down with the blood of my enemies. I found the White River supplies hidden underneath of these stairs, had another close encounter with some frisky vultures, and discovered the final loot room on the rooftop. These jumping zombies were fucking terrifying and definitely made the fight a little sketchy, but all in all I was still handling these encounters just fine. I found a tempered blade mod and some biker gloves in the loot box, which was great because I was still rocking the primitive gloves. I rode my bike to another nearby airdrop for a magazine bundle, turned in my quest for 200 coal, and decided it was time to upgrade my armor. The biker set sounded pretty solid overall, and I didn't have to waste as many resources since I just looted the gloves. I looked sexy as hell, and felt a little more confident going into future missions. I spent the remainder of the day filling in this stupid fucking hole that I kept falling into, and tearing out this iron gate that was useless because it was locked. When daylight broke, I hopped on my bike and headed to the next mission at the Clem residence. After that pack of dogs pushed my shit in, I was pretty cautious about dropping into tight spaces, but alas, there was no other way. The good news is I tore through this mission. I was hitting faster and harder as I leveled up, and was quickly seeing how my levels were evening the playing field, at least for now. The final loot room was disappointing, but every mission I completed put me one step closer to the next tier. I hopped on my bike and drove back to Rex where I was torn between the crafting magazine bundle or the Gravedigger mod, but ultimately I opted for the latter. I wanted to start experimenting with electrical stuff soon, so I chose to buy a generator while I was here and headed to the next mission at the Goldsmith residence. Everything was very straightforward until this section. While stealing all of their dining room chairs, as one would do, the floor gave out and I hopped up on the kitchen table, but then a zombie slapped me in the ass from somewhere and I had no idea where. Reviewing this footage, I still have no idea where this phantom zombie was. I mowed down the rest of the zombies, found the White River supplies in the closet, and discovered the final loot room in the attic. The only notable thing was the Gravedigger mod, which I literally just accepted as a reward from that last quest, fuck me. Rex offered me some pipe bombs as a reward, and I returned to base just before night. I chose to install the generator on top of this little pedestal in the corner of my base, and put 2 engines inside of it for now. Lastly, I made an iron shovel and fully renovated one of the windows inside of my base. I loved the look of my new window and decided to take the time to renovate each one inside of my base. I think they turned out great, but definitely needed a little bit of paint at some point. I hopped on my bike and rode to the next mission location, which was a buried supplies quest. My new shovel made a huge difference, but these missions were still pretty monotonous. I did find some nice schematics in the chest and got swarmed by zombies at the end, but all in all it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. Rect offered me another magazine bundle as a reward, and I decided to purchase the wire tool so I could continue my electrical work. I hopped on my bike and rode to the next mission at the cartel house. I was really starting to take advantage of resource piles during missions now that I had better tools, because I knew it would end up saving me a lot of grinding later down the line. Even things like couches were beneficial to harvest because they gave leather, which I was going to need a lot of for better armor. I stole all of their dining room chairs, raided their kitchen, and made my way into the basement where I discovered a cooking pot bomb. I was pretty cautious around this thing at first, but I ended up aggroing 2 hazmat zombies and decided to use it to my advantage. In the attic, I found this fenced-in section that also made me uneasy, but it ended up coming in clutch for fighting multiple zombies at once. I killed another vegan and came across the final loot room where I looted a treasure hunter mod for my headgear. This thing was a massive find, and ended up being a best-in-slot item all the way until the end of the game. I even found some light bulbs, which is fortuitous given that I just purchased a generator and wire tool. In case you weren't paying attention, that mission took all night. I headed back to Rex in the morning and turned it in for a magazine bundle, and jumped right into the next mission at Bart's Salvage. It was basically a junkyard, and what junkyard is complete without hookers and dogs? This place was a gold mine for scrap polymer though, and I found the White River supplies pretty quickly. I even opted to tear apart this excavator before heading into the underground bunker? Okay, this was strange, but I rolled with it. Thinking ahead, I slapped down a storage box so I could lighten my load and proceed into the water tunnels below. One section was blocked off by this leaking gas pipe, but I found the shutoff valve in another room and was able to proceed. Even though this final loot room looked safe, it was far from it. 7 Days to Die has a way of keeping you on your toes, especially towards the end of a mission. Keep this in mind for later because it ends up kicking my ass on multiple occasions. I found a little ammo and some weapon parts, but all in all the loot was pretty trash. With the mission complete and nightfall officially here, I headed back to base and decided to start renovating my storage system. These renovations took all night and a large majority of the following morning, but they were absolutely necessary. Being able to quickly bank my inventory and find resources faster would speed things up and make questing more efficient. I even made a second campfire so I could speed up food production. I harvested my garden, shot a deer in the fucking face, claimed some pistol ammo from Rect, and rode out to a distant airdrop. It had a book bundle and a magazine bundle, so worth it. Tomorrow was Horde Day and I wanted to make some changes to the bunker before then. It was going to require a lot of wood and a lot of patience with a shovel. I always seem to underestimate just how long these building projects would take, with these modifications consuming literally the entire day, but in the end I had a much more efficient and fortified base to show for it. Since it was Horde Night, I spent the entire day simply driving around the town scrapping mechanical things and harvesting resources. I couldn't really go on any missions since I would run the risk of not completing it in time before the Horde, so this was my best option. I did one final preliminary check to make sure my modifications would hold up, and spent the entire night fighting off the Horde to the best of my ability. The Horde base performed perfectly just like last time, and from this point forwards in this challenge, the Horde nights were more about farming XP and less about survival. The zombies did destroy a few of the wooden blocks lining the bottom, but all in all the damage was minimal. I made all the necessary repairs and rode my bike to the next mission location at the Budget Burrows. This was a convoluted apartment complex with one section in particular scaring the daylights out of me.
Oh my god.
There were a decent amount of zombies in this complex, but nothing I couldn't handle. I broke all of their family portraits, stole all of their chairs, and reached the final loot room for a mediocre reward. I picked up this airdrop on my way home for a magazine bundle and a ranged mod bundle, although none of it was very helpful. What was helpful was Rex's reward of a crafting magazine bundle and the option of a nail gun for moving up to tier 3 missions. This thing was fucking sweet. At the crack of dawn, I headed straight for the next mission at the Fungi Daycare Center. If the name isn't evident, it's a daycare center. Full of murder? This place had boatloads of magazines. And murder! Okay, I'll stop, I promise. I found a tier 4 pipe machine gun inside a locker and reasoned that it would probably be useful in a pinch. This place had a tendency of just dropping zombies on top of me.
Naked grandma!
Naked, huh?
I mean, seriously, what? But despite how funny some of these entrances were, this mission was no laughing matter. Tier 3 missions were a definite step up in difficulty, and I ended up using that pipe machine gun sooner than I thought. The final loot room didn't have anything of value, but Rect did give me 60 shotgun shells for my trouble. I built some more farm crop plots, cobblestoned my windows, upgraded my front door to iron, and decided to redesign the beams in my base so I could install some lights. This took me all night to redesign and wire up, but overall I was really pleased with the results. I got some paint cooking up on the campfire and headed to the next mission. It was another buried supplies mission, but it was a bit more challenging since it was tier 3. Waves of enemies were coming at me between the quest updates, but all in all it was pretty straightforward. The reward was complete shit, as was Rec's follow-up with a first aid kit. My next mission was located at a place called the Bear Den, and you know I'm starting it off by hitting him where it hurts.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
So now that I'm tackling tier 3 missions, feral zombies are a thing, indicated by the glowing red eyes. These zombies are faster, stronger, and much harder to take down than normal zombies. Now I've tackled this POI in the past, and I kind of knew what to expect ahead of time. The bar area that I was cutting my way into is scary as hell! I even pre-dosed with some Fort Bites and a recall drink just to make things go as smooth as possible. You see, this bar was called the Bear Den for a reason. There were 2 massive, zombified bears in metal cages, and if I didn't kill them fast enough, I ran the risk of them breaking out of their cells and mauling me. This was already stressful enough as it was, but the room was also filled with regular zombies to deal with first. This first bear took an insane amount of pistol bullets to take down, and by the time I reached the other bear, he had already done a number on his jail bars. I started stabbing the shit out of him to get some bleeds and burns rolling, but like I've said before, this game loves to throw curveballs. A passing horde of zombies that wasn't even part of the mission had found their way onto the rooftop and started dropping in. Talk about terrible timing. By the time I finished them off, the other bear had nearly broken out of his bars holding him in the cell, but I managed to take him down in time to prevent a complete catastrophe. Both bears dropped magazines and ammunition, which was great since I expended a lot on this mission. The final loot chest was complete shit though, so I hopped on my bike and headed home. Day 25 was a base building day. I wanted to install a garage door leading into my courtyard instead of this iron gate, but to do that I would have to make some alterations. I did get sidetracked by this airdrop partway through, but that was because I was on the constant lookout for vehicle magazines. I wanted a mini bike in the worst kind of way. There wasn't quite high enough level to craft it yet. When I got back to base, I decided to craft a full set of miner's gear, reasoning that it would probably come in handy with this base building stuff and would always be useful later down the road. This set was sexy as hell and helped reduce the degradation of my tools. It took me pretty much the entire day to tear out all of the metal gates and stone pillars, but after I framed in the door and placed it down for the first time, I knew it was all worth it. The animation was smooth and the sound was crisp, both of which I was a fan of. Next I decided to make this little zombie fighting area off to the left of the garage door. I wanted an easy way to kill zombies trying to get into my base, and I reasoned that having a double-wall gated section like this would be the best option. I placed upside-down ramps overhead so the zombies couldn't jump over it, finalized everything in cobblestone, and painted the blocks to match the rest of the perimeter wall. I spent the remainder of the night making little touch-ups around the base, like fixing this broken section of the church and repainting my windowsills. The next morning I turned in my quest for some cobblestone and purchased 3 vehicle magazines and 3 shotgun magazines from Rect. Those shotgun magazines were enough to unlock the double-barrel shotgun, but that was going to have to wait until later after I completed the mission at the Hybrid Energy Substation. This quest started out like any other, slaying zombies, stealing chairs, shooting zombified animals, you know, the usual stuff, but then I pressed a button, and I think it's important for you all to realize just how fast things can go south.
Oh my god. Whoa!
Now I don't know what in the Harry Potter hell that was, but I was in a bit of a pickle now. Feral soldiers were nothing to sneeze at, and this thing was persistent.
What the fuck?
I did end up getting some gap on it, which bought me the time I needed to heal up and pump them full of about 15 more rifle shots. Yeah, there was no way I was standing toe-to-toe with that thing for much longer. This mission was really long, winding through locker rooms, hallways, and stairwells, all leading up to this final loot room. I knew it was a trap even before I pressed the button, and I was correct.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
The only notable things from that loot room were this lead car battery and another vehicle magazine, both of which I would need for the mini bike in the future. I went back to base to bank all of my stuff and started crafting that double-barrel shotgun overnight. The next morning, Rect offered me a reward of 25 forged steel for that quest that I completed. Forged steel was really hard to come by since I didn't have the Crucible mod to smelt it yet, so this was a great reward. I hopped on my bike and headed straight to the next mission at Forever Video. This place was like an old Blockbusters, and while my new double-barrel shotgun was proving useful, it let me down hard in the next room. I'll just let you see for yourself.
Oh.
God damn it! Now, I was really trying to not die again in this challenge, but my fate was pretty much sealed here. If the double-barrel shotgun had knocked down or dismembered this feral zombie, I would have been fine, but neither shot seemed to phase him and the bleed ended up taking me out. I had to do the walk of shame back to my body to retrieve my things, and since I wasn't very far into the mission, it was in my best interest to head back to Rex to get a new one. He sent me to the Ball Strike bowling alley. Initially, things were looking up. I found a retracting stock mod for my shotgun in this locked safe, which improved weapon handling in tight quarters. The mission was going smoothly and I was playing these fights as safe as I could by using door tricks. When I reached the end of the mission, though, things took a turn for the worst. I knew this was going to be a trap and even spotted a zombie hiding in the ceiling panels before shit went down. I thought I had the upper hand, but little did I know that the game was about to fuck me for a second time. I started taking a lot of damage from out of nowhere, and then it dawned on me that a zombie dog was chewing my balls. Pistol bullets were barely scratching him, and both of my shotgun shells completely missed him. Even though I did end up taking him out, he had stacked too many debuffs on me, and for some reason it felt like I was walking in quicksand.
Oh my god.
I just want to quickly point out that this little fucker bit me at just the right time to make both of those shells completely miss. I mean, look at that bullshit recoil pattern. What is that? So once again, I found myself doing the walk of shame 2 times in one day. Since I was already at the end of this mission, it was in my best interest to finish clearing it to loot the final room. I found some of the usual stuff like magazines and bullets, but also came across this Grandpa's Learning Elixir to boost my XP, and a cigar. Cigars could be attached to a piece of headgear to boost bartering by 10%. Basically, I could sell things for more and buy things for cheaper with this equipped. There was no cheering me up, though. This day was a colossal failure, and I felt pretty defeated. I went back to base and hoped that tomorrow would be a better day. It was Horde Day and was not going to be a better day. I'm only kidding, actually, things went fine. I started off the morning by pursuing this treasure map that I looted from a previous mission. Biking takes a lot of stamina, so I decided to chug a beer for the stamina regen. This was useful, hilarious, and disorienting all at the same time. The treasure map missions played out just like buried supplies, except the rewards tended to be a lot better. I pedaled my drunk ass back to base, but stopped to loot an airdrop on the way for a ranged mod bundle and a crafting skill magazine bundle. Rex inventory had reset, so I decided to buy some more shotgun magazines and a headlight mod attachment. These things are incredible, but I would have to upgrade my headgear for more mod slots before I could use it. With only a few minutes left until the Horde came, I started to beef up the walls of my bunker with more layers of blocks. I knew I wasn't going to finish in time, but I figured I would get as much done as possible. The Horde showed up, I killed said Horde, everything was fine. The only real exciting thing that happened was the introduction of this fucking terrifying zombie direwolf. It took me about half of the night to actually kill the thing, but the rewards were quite nice. I repaired the base and finished making all the alterations I started making the day before. It was nothing crazy, but it did make it a bit more roomy inside. I was able to make the ratchet tool finally, but I needed to find some more steel tool parts first. These things can be found by scrapping steel tools, and the best way to find those is through completing missions, so off to the Weston Way Station I went. As the name indicates, this place was a way station. For murder! I fucked up their couches, broke all their portraits, stole all their chairs, and experienced a huge drop in frame rate when this truck exploded. Without really realizing it, I had just triggered the final loot room rush. Fortunately for me this time, my shotgun shells actually slowed down this feral zombie so I could get away. I won't lie, I cheesed this fight pretty hard, using height to my advantage until I whittled down enough to go melee. The most notable things I found here were a tire and this foregrip mod that I can put on my shotgun. I killed the last zombie to complete the mission and went full Johnny Knoxville on my way back to base. The next morning, I expanded on the garden as much as I could, turned in that quest for another 25 forged steel, and headed to the next mission at the Rapone residence. I raided their closet, stole all their chairs, shattered all their pictures, and found 4 steel tool parts in the garage. I didn't even realize it at first because I was looting so fast, but then it dawned on me.
Oh my god, yes! Yes!
The last part of this mission was in the basement, where the game had one final curveball to throw at me.
Oh my god. Oh!
The final loot room just had the basic stuff, like meds and ammo, but those steel tool parts more than made up for it. I rode back to base, banked my items, and turned in that quest for another 25 forged steel. With those 4 steel tool parts I found, and all of the forged steel I've been getting from Wrecked, I was finally able to craft a steel pickaxe, axe, shovel, and ratchet. These upgrades were absolutely massive, making gathering resources easier and clearing missions that much faster. Things were taking longer and longer to craft at this point, so I decided to place a second workbench beside my first one. This enabled me to craft multiple things simultaneously and speed up progression. Now I had big plans for the next few days. While researching good base defenses, I came across this content creator by the name of Jawoodle. He made a YouTube short showcasing how to build a zombie force field around your base by digging a trench and using a very specific set of blocks that zombies don't like to cross. Make sure you check out his original video and show him some love, because this design was tremendous. Now this is something I had in mind for my base for a good while, but I didn't even want to attempt it until I had better tools. It was a ton of digging, a ton of wood cutting, and a ton of building blocks. It took me the entire day and night just to dig the trench and start meticulously placing the blocks the way they needed to be. There was this one little spot here in front of my garage door that gave me never-ending issues. I have no clue what the issue was, but it just refused to let me place down blocks. I just skipped it for now and kept building into the following morning. I had finished the first half of the front of my base at this point, and I wanted to test it out before I went any further. I pissed off this nearby lumberjack and lured him over to the force field to try it out for the first time, and it was fucking awesome! The trench was too deep for zombies to cross, and they didn't register these 2 unique blocks as being solid enough to support them. This basically meant that zombies would keep trying to find an alternative route to get towards me, and as long as I provided that route, they would leave the unique blocks alone. This was confirmation enough for me to finish the other half of the front of my entrance, and wouldn't you know it, a horde showed up at just the right time. The idea here was to give them a clean path to the barred area that I made before. That way any zombies that showed up to attack my base would funnel into the central area for me to kill. It worked exactly as intended, and I knew that I wanted to pull the trigger on this force field idea for the entire perimeter. That one glitchy spot in front of my garage door was still being a complete pain in the ass, so I came up with a compromise. I even installed a small ramp to smooth the transition when riding vehicles over it. This defensive force field was going to be an ongoing project for several weeks, and after working on it for 2 days straight, I needed a break. I hopped on my bike and rode to the next mission location at Bill Gear's place. I started by tearing apart his tractor and shuttle bus because fuck him. Then I dropped into his trailer from this hole in the roof. Luckily, my reactions were quick enough and the shotgun did its job, as otherwise this feral zombie could have wrecked me. This nurse was all kinds of wacky, just slipping and sliding, whoa! But I only laughed for a short time until the dark thoughts ensued. Anyways, the rest of the mission was pretty straightforward, but the loot was pretty lackluster. I went back to Rex and turned it in for 10 hand grenades, then pushed the next mission at the vacant residence. Now, of course, I stole all of their chairs and raided their closets and stole all of their cash and shattered their pet portraits. Wait a second, am I the bad guy? Nah. Anyways, I killed these 2 fuckbirds in the basement, found the White River supplies on the shelf, and reached the final loot room before nightfall. This wooden crate had the vehicle headlight schematic, which will be great when I get the mini-bike. Unfortunately, I ran out of lockpicks, which forced me to break apart this chest by hand, but it was well worth it. It contained another treasure map and 2, count them 2, legendary parts. I biked back home, defended my base from the invading horde, and spent a few hours I had left digging more of the force field. So it was about time for a change of gear, so I decided to craft a full set of rogue armor. I mainly did this because I needed more mod slots on my gear, but also because it looked fucking sweet and I liked the set bonus. I turned in my quest for a magazine bundle, bought a few magazines off of Wrecked, and headed to the next mission location at the Novice Gain Fire District. Basically, it was a fire department. Full of murder! The spear was really starting to put in work nowadays with slows and knockdowns. I still panic swapped to my shotgun when a feral zombie was involved, of course, but the spear could probably pull me out of these situations too. The final loot room was in this bell tower, but I didn't have anything worth of value. I found the White River supplies on top of a shitter and spent a few minutes tearing apart these vehicles for supplies. That is, until I tried tearing apart this cop car. The car alarm managed to call in a swarm of feral zombies, and my poor decision-making told me to climb this water tower. This was a bit too close for comfort. Luckily, all the zombies prioritized going around the side of the tower, because if they cut me off on both sides, I would have been fucked. I jumped back down the ladder, climbed up the fire department, jumped off the other side, and rode away while I still had the chance. Rect gave me some pistol ammo, and I decided to spend some hard-earned dukes on a laser sight for my shotgun. It was sexy. I finally decided to craft an AK-47 and a hunting rifle as well, as I figured with these missions getting harder and harder, I was probably going to need them. I spent the rest of the night digging more of that force field trench. Day 35 was another horde day, so I couldn't get involved with too much. I picked up this airdrop for a farming bundle and some magazines, and pursued this buried supplies mission since I knew I could complete it relatively fast. The Tier 3 versions of these missions were certainly tougher, but still pretty straightforwards. After this, I decided to go to that treasure map I looted, which just happened to be in the winter biome. The cold wasn't an issue, but this massive bear was. I just knew he was going to come charging at me at the worst time, so I decided to take the fight to him. I even expended some of those grenades that Rec gave me a while back, but this thing was really tanky. I would have been fine too if it wasn't for these meddling lumberjacks. Well, actually, it was the radiated screamer that came out of nowhere and called it a bunch of other zombies. I knew I was about to have a massive fight on my hands in a difficult zone with a bear on standby, so I decided that this treasure map just probably wasn't worth it. I went back to base and used the remainder of the day to work on the force field trench. When nightfall came, I went to the horde bunker and decided to install this little storage box on the floor so I could always have some building materials in here. The horde came, I fought said horde, and everything went just fine. The only difference was they absolutely fucked up my lower trench, and I definitely had to upgrade this to cobblestone before the next horde. Which is exactly what I did the following morning. Not only did I repair everything, but I also widened the trench, reinforced the walls, dug it one block deeper, redesigned the stairs, and even installed these whole blocks that zombies wouldn't walk on top of. The entire structure was fully cobblestone now, and I felt a lot more secure going into the next horde. When I made it back to base, I came to the startling realization that I could finally make the mini bike. I had to craft the handlebars, chassis, and wheels first, but eventually I got everything together.
Mini bike crafting, huh?
At the time of crafting this, I was talking with a buddy of mine on Discord, and my wife was fucking destroying her computer mouse while playing The Elder Scrolls Online, so forgive the poor audio here.
It is fucking adorable.
Little scooter.
Oh my god. Alright. Now we're cooking.
There you go. It's a lot faster.
Oh yeah. And it doesn't use stamina.
I turned in that last quest for a Wasteland book and was given a second reward of night vision goggles for moving up to Tier 4 missions. Now before you get too excited, these things fucking sucked. They occluded the screen too much and were a bit too bright for me, so I didn't use them outside of mining. I spent the rest of the night digging more of the force field trench. The next morning, I hopped straight on my mini bike and headed for the next mission at the Happy Sleep Motel. This place had a really cool design to it, but it was confusing as hell. Looking back on this mission, I had a few funny encounters with zombie cops.
Oh my god.
I also had to suppress some more dark thoughts and take out some rage on their seating situation, but all in all it went pretty smoothly.
Feel like this is a fucking trap.
Oh my god.
Uh-huh.
I chucked a few pieces of dynamite down this hole to weed through the horde, which worked out really well.
Something's gonna happen, huh?
Alrighty then.
I was still completely out of lockpicks, so I had to break into this final chest, but it was worth it. I quick-scoped a zombie vulture in the face because fuck that zombie vulture, and started the long drive back to base. I turned in that quest for 25 forged steel, bought a few spear magazines, and another generator for a future project. Those magazines finally pushed me to a high enough level to craft the steel spear, and let's just say that this thing was an absolute beast compared to my old one. Little did I know, though, just how much I was about to need it. I hopped on the mini bike and drove to the next mission location at the Gold Rush Station. As soon as this mission started, fucking chaos ensued. This zombie dog started ripping into my ballsack, zombie soldiers started falling out of watchtowers, a feral screamer showed up, zombies were stepping on landmines. I mean, this shit was straight out of an Expendables movie. If all of this wasn't indication enough, I've officially hit T4 missions. The likelihood of encountering feral zombies was yes, which means every single fight was stressful. This didn't stop me from taking all of their chairs, of course, but when shit started to hit the fan, I knew when to retreat. For example, this zombie's movement speed made me uncomfortable, so without hesitation, I retreated back towards the center of the compound, and it's a good thing that I did. By the time I had built myself up to safety, a horde of feral zombies came pouring through the metal gate. I am not exaggerating at all when I say that I spent the remainder of the night standing on this rooftop shooting at them with my rifle. These things were tanky as hell, and I knew there was no way I was standing toe-to-toe with them on foot, so this was really my only option. I tried to make progress in the morning, but little did I know that I wasn't even close to being done. I retreated back to my rooftop to fight off the ferals, but used the spear where I could to save on ammo.
Oh god, there's an underground tunnel. How long is this mission?
This clip just about summarizes how much this game likes to fuck me. I mean, just look at how fast things go south here. Looking back now, it's hilarious, but at the time, I was sitting on the edge of my seat in pure anxiety.
What is with this mission, dude? It's so hard. Oh my god!
I mean, at one point, a zombie literally tried to smack the shotgun out of my hands.
Oh god.
No, that's ignorant.
Now, if you think I was being too overly cautious or cowardly with how I approached this mission, I kindly ask you to reconsider.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I feel like this mission's just not even worth it anymore.
I had no idea this mission was going to be this long or stressful. Had I known it, I never would have pursued it. But it was too late to turn back now.
About to press the button. I've got no shotgun or AR ammo left at all.
I had reached the tunnels at the end of the mission, and since my ammo situation was so dire, I resorted to blocking off the hatch so I could melee the zombies. This very small strategic decision actually ended up saving this mission. Now, there were still a few ass-clenching moments, like when this zombie smacked me around a few times, but after literally 2 days and nights of persistence, I finally defeated the last zombie. The final loot room looked generous at first, but ended up being complete shit. I had expended way more resources than I got out of it, and at this point, I just wanted to be out of here. Rex's reward wasn't any better, but the beaker would allow me to make antibiotics if I had to. I needed a break after that last mission, so day 40 was a base building day. I finally had the resources to finish my garden, and spent the rest of the day digging out the trench. I had the trench fully dug out by the morning, but I didn't have the energy to place down all the building blocks. I was slowly making my way towards the next mission, but needed gasoline pretty badly, so I was making frequent pit stops to tear apart vehicles as I went. Eventually, I found my way to the Ranger Station Alpha. Now, this whole mission was a challenge, and I even faced off against a few radiated zombies along the way, but all in all, the beginning was very smooth. I found a T3 steel pick in a box, which was a significant upgrade over my current pick, and found the White River supplies pretty early. All of this simply lulled me into a false set of confidence, though, because the end of this mission had other plans in mind.
Oh god. Oh fucking hell. God damn it.
So when this initially happened, I thought it was kind of strange that I didn't hear much of any audio ahead of time, but I chalked it up as me making a mistake. I retrieved my body and decided that I might as well finish looting the tower since I wasted so much time and energy getting here. The coast was completely clear, as I would expect it to be since I failed the mission, but then this happened.
Oh my god, where the fuck did they go? They weren't even there! What?
So yeah, this game is complete bullshit. I wasn't imagining things before, and those zombies weren't there originally, but rather spawned on top of me when I got close enough. This right here, people, is why I didn't approach this challenge as a permadeath one like some of my other videos. While I could chalk up some of my deaths as just pure mistakes that were on me, situations like this felt really unfair, and I would have hated to have gone 40 days into this challenge only for it to end like this. I climbed back up into the tower for the 3rd time, and prairie dogged my way up and down the ladder trying to get them to spawn. I even tried making a bunch of noise to lure them in, but nothing. And then this happened.
Oh my god, why do they keep spawning like that? That's such horse shit. It's horse shit.
So yeah, 3 deaths at the exact same spot, but 4th time I learned my lesson. I decided to build up the side of the tower and jump up and down to spawn all of the zombies. I still ended up taking multiple hits from them because they're so damn fast, but I was able to use the levels of the tower to my advantage.
Gotcha, bitch!
This mission was bullshit, and I was perturbed, but I did manage to find a T3 steel spear in the box. It was Horde Day, though, and this mission took way longer than it should have, so I had to get back to base. It was becoming evidently clear that I was getting outgunned on these missions, and I had to change that. I bought a bunch of magazines from Wrecked, as well as a bunch of electrical supplies. Those magazines leveled me up enough to finally be able to craft the pump shotgun, but it was going to take the rest of the night to craft. I went over to the bunker and fought off the Horde for the rest of the night. Everything went great, and I was able to work off the XP debt I had accumulated. The cobblestone held up great too, so I only had a couple repairs to make. That shotgun was still crafting, so I decided to push the next buried supplies mission. Everything went great, and I dug up the box in no time, although both of the rewards were pretty crappy. I grabbed my new shotgun from the workbench, slapped the best mods that I had on it, and loaded some shells into it for the first time. With my new shotgun in hand, I went straight to the next mission located at the Arania Caverns. I started off strong by stealing all of their chairs and trying out the pump shotgun for the first time. This thing was chunky, and I loved it. I still prioritized melee where I could to save on ammo, but sometimes I just needed that extra oomph. While you might be thinking that these fights looked pretty easy, they were still quite difficult. Zombies took a lot of bullets to take down, and there were swarms of them in pretty much every chamber, but ultimately the pump shotgun did make a massive difference. The final loot room was absolute chaos, and I spent the remainder of the night fighting off all the zombies. Come morning time, I was finally able to loot the room, although I didn't find anything notable outside of some ammo, cash, and crafting parts. I snagged this airdrop on my way home for a T5 nail gun and a crafting skill magazine bundle, and was giving another bundle by Rect as a reward. I spent some of my hard-earned dukes on some magazines and an anvil mod, which would speed up the crafting time of my forge significantly. I also crafted an advanced bellows to boost smelting speed. I hopped on my mini bike and drove to the next mission at Fort Bags. This place was great. It had a landmine field in front that I took full advantage of when I could, but ultimately I still had to get down and dirty with a spear. I didn't hesitate to use the shotgun for feral zombies, though. The final loot room was in this underground bunker, which could have been a difficult fight had I not used the landmine strategically. The loot was pretty shitty, though, outside of some ammo. I killed the last zombie, found the White River supplies in a watchtower, and returned home for the night. In the morning, I turned in that quest for 200 gunpowder and drove my cute little ass through a barren wasteland to the next mission. The Mortician's house was both terrifying inside and out. Before I even started this mission, I got attacked by this feral-looking thing. I feel like the game is starting to do that thing that MMOs do, where they just keep tacking on adjectives that make the enemies increasingly harder. Like this fucking radiated, feral, meticulous, diabetic, Trojan condom, fiery, flamey, sizzling, burning, ember shard of ever-ready tactical lumberjack. Okay, so I made all of that up, but you get the point. I stole all of the Mortician's chairs, because fuck those chairs, used some door trickery, and refused to let any of these businessmen stand upright. It was extremely satisfying to just flatten an entire room like this with the pump shotgun, but I couldn't let my confidence get the better of me. If anything, I probably should have been playing more cautiously, because these zombies were tankier, faster, and hit way harder than they used to. I triggered a wave of zombies when I headshot this one in the basement, and without missing a beat, I fled like a bitch. Like I said before, these zombies are way tougher than they used to be, so nearly every fight during this mission was a struggle for survival. I found the White River supplies and the furnace. Okay, how did they not catch on fire? And I found the final loot room shortly after. The ammo was nice, but the shining jewel of this was the Tier 5 pump shotgun. I walked outside to find a zombie bear standing guard over my mini-bike, so I had to get creative with how I approached it. I crouch-walked my way over to the mini-bike and drove away faster than Nick Cannon after a one-night stand.
I plead the fifth.
I turned in that quest for 10 hand grenades and went back to base. It was about time I finished this force field. After all, the game was only getting harder and harder, and I wanted to make sure I had it complete before things got too difficult. Since I was going to be hanging around the base a lot, though, I decided to get some things crafting up. I crafted the Vehicle Reserve Fuel Tank mod, a Vehicle Headlight mod, and a Tier 4 hunting rifle. That new shotgun I found allowed up to 4 mod slots, so I decided to fill them all and take advantage of it. I slapped those new mods on my mini-bike, used a workbench to passively craft some cobblestone blocks, and spent the rest of the day and night working on the force field. By morning time, I had finished the entire perimeter, and it was looking glorious. Now, I still had to turn it all into cobblestone, but that was going to be a gradual project that I tackled over time. I had other plans in mind, though, like pushing the next mission at the NDC Checkpoint 3. Right out the rip, I find this T5 AK-47, which was a nice indication that loot was getting better. This new hunting rifle felt considerably stronger than the last one, which really came in clutch for sneak attacks. Pressing this button pissed off a lot of zombies, but it was nothing compared to the horde that I was about to face. A radiated screamer showed up out of nowhere and called in an entire horde. And then another screamer showed up and called in an entire horde. I used the environment to my advantage here, which helped out a lot, but then another screamer showed up and called in an entire horde. I stood my ground for as long as I could here, but eventually zombies found a way to get to me and I had to run outside to fight them off. It took me an extremely long time to whittle all these zombies down, and I just want to point this out in case it got lost in translation. None of these zombies are from the fucking mission! In fact, the mission felt easy after this point. Well, up until these 2 dogs bit the shit out of my balls, but luckily my reactions were on point and I was able to cure the bleed before it killed me. I found the White River supplies inside of this tent and dropped inside the compound to finish off the final wave. I used door tricks here as much as I could, and oh my god, that was disgusting! The final loot room had a bunch of magazines and ammo, but the big ticket item here was this motor large tool tank mod schematic large motor tool large. I didn't have powered tools yet, but I would soon. So even though I completed this mission and everything was a huge success, the game was still finding ways to humble me.
Oh my god.
My wife was sleeping at the time that I died, so I was trying to be as quiet as I could for her sake. But what I actually wanted to say was this. I grabbed all my stuff and decided to tear apart all these vehicles at the entrance before heading back to base. Rekt gave me 5 repair kits for that mission, which was just a fucking joke, but he did have some more magazines for sale, so I forgave him. Now today was pretty much over, so I just decided to do some more base maintenance. I wanted to install another garage door and defensive zombie killing area, so I started to tear apart this back section of my wall. I did get attacked by a horde of zombies at one point, but it only served to show off the force field's effectiveness. I really wish these assholes had let me upgrade to cobblestone before vomiting all over the place, but I digress. I slapped down the new garage door, finalized the framing, double-layered the defensive bars, and stepped back to take a look at my work. It was beautiful. Day 49 was Horde Day, so there wasn't too much I can get involved in, but I figured that this would be the perfect time to complete that treasure map I had to bail on. The drive back to the Winter Zone was long, as was the excavation process, but in the end it was all worth it.
Holy shit. That's a lot of fucking dukes, my god.
Now this mountain lion here was pissing me off, just standing there. Being a mountain lion. I wanted to kill one just so I can say that I killed one, and this poor sap was my proverbial checkbox. I went back to base and gathered up all my valuables to sell to Rekt, and by the time I finished cashing in, I was looking at a stack of over 22,000 dukes. I bought some magazines and another motion sensor before picking up this airdrop out in the distance. This airdrop ended up being important because it gave me enough magazines to finally unlock mechanical tools, aka the auger and the chainsaw. You best believe I went straight back to base and got crafting these immediately. I did spend some dukes on 52 forged steel to replenish what I had used, and by that time the horde was a-coming. Everything went great as usual, and I leveled up overnight from all the zombies I killed. The fully cobblestoned base was much more durable, and I hardly had to make any repairs come morning. I decided to craft 2 of these motor tool large tool mod tanks tools mods for my new mechanical tools, and after slapping some of the other mods on them, I fueled them up for the first time. The chainsaw was great for mass harvesting wood, and the auger made quick work of stones and dirt. In fact, having these tools really started to trivialize larger projects and mass harvesting of certain resources. Now technically speaking, steel tools still have a higher yield than mechanical tools at this stage, but using gasoline instead of stamina was far less annoying. While these tools were awesome and would certainly see a lot of use, their home was in my mini bike for now. Manual tools were much quieter and my preferred choice while completing missions. Speaking of which, it was time to head to the next mission at Fort Bangs. Again. I didn't realize I'd already completed this mission when I picked it up, but since I was already familiar with it, it just made it that much easier. The shotgun put in work, and I found a ton of ammo and magazines from the final room. Back at base, I really wanted to make Tier 6 steel tools, but the forged steel cost was absurd. Forged steel could be made at a forge if I had the Crucible mod, but that required 75 in workstations, which was far out of reach. My only option would be to purchase this Crucible at a trader, but that was a problem for a different day. I spent the rest of the night upgrading as much of the force field as I could to cobblestone. Rekt gave me a magazine bundle as a reward, and I immediately set out on the next mission at Judy Witch. This mission was terrifying. It was in the Wasteland, which meant that the game stage was higher, which meant go fuck yourself. I won't lie, I chewed through ammunition and medkits during this mission. There were tons of feral zombies, radiated zombies, and at one point even a bear.
The fuck?
I'm pretty sure this thing wasn't even part of the mission, it just kind of like wandered into the action. It was tanky as hell, fast as hell, and gave me a heart attack on multiple occasions, but just like most things, it was allergic to lead. I broke all their couches and office chairs so they wouldn't have anywhere to sit, and went toe-to-toe with these 2 radiated vomit zombies. These things were ridiculously tanky and took a lot of bullets to kill, but the final loot room replenished most of the loss. Plus, I got another one of these triple armor pocket mods, which was huge. I found the White River supplies behind this vent and made the long drive home in the dark. Since gasoline was becoming such a vital resource, I decided to make the Impact Driver tool, which was going to be a godsend for harvesting vehicles. The following morning, I crafted a pair of Enforcer sunglasses. The reason being is that they give a plus 10% to bartering, and when upgraded with the cigar mod would give a total of plus 20% bartering. This was going to be huge for high-end purchases in the future. I turned in that quest for 35 shotgun AP slugs and decided to pursue this other treasure map that I found. The auger made short work of the digging aspect, and just like the last time, the rewards were awesome. I even found a new tier 5 steel spear, which was as close to endgame as it could get. I was in the mood for traveling and buying things, and I knew that Trader Jen would have a mission to talk to the next trader, so that's where I headed. The drive was extremely long, just like last time, but was a little more tolerable with the minibike. She gave me a mission to talk to Trader Bob in the desert, and while I was here I bought a few forged magazines. Trader Bob was even farther away at a whopping 2.7 kilometers, and by the time I reached his front gates, he was closed. I decided to spend the night here as efficiently as possible by running around and disassembling vehicles with my new tool. That's when I came across this tractor, and my buddy Skippy, who was in Discord watching my stream at the time, loves tractors.
Oh, man.
Don't look, Skippy.
When Trader Bob opened up his doors in the morning, I was the first one there. He gave me a magazine bundle for my troubles, and offered me yet another opening trade routes mission to meet Trader Hugh. I bought a few more forged magazines, which was enough to officially unlock the cement mixer workstation. I hopped on my mini bike and made the long journey of 3.7 kilometers over to Trader Hugh's. He gave me another magazine bundle, I bought another Forged Ahead magazine, and 2 rifle magazines. Next, I decided to push the mission he gave me at the Pine Balls bowling alley. Now, I'll admit, the last time I was inside of a bowling alley it didn't go so well, but this time around was different. Even though the enemies hit harder and were super fast, I felt that I had the artillery to combat them. Door tricks didn't work so well on radiated zombies, but they still worked just fine on the feral ones. When I found my way to the rooftop, this happened.
He just fell out.
This guy's rolling out. I don't like these things being up here above me when I drop in.
Yeah.
The auger came in handy for drilling out these bricks so I could kill the zombies inside. Once they were all dead, I crossed my fingers and dropped into the Hole of Doom Death, also known as Catherine Zeta-Jones. The final loot room here wasn't too difficult.
Oh, okay. This is where shit's gonna go down.
Bowling alley.
Yeah, see all the loot? This is what they do. They put it all in eyesight and then it all goes to shit.
There were quite a few feral zombies, don't get me wrong, but my skill with the shotgun had improved a lot, and with that came a much higher chance to dismember. I found quite a few magazines and loads of ammo to replenish what I had used during that mission, but I really didn't find anything unique or special. Outside of this Grandpa's moonshine. I hopped on my mini bike and headed back to Trader Hugh's, where I was rewarded with a first aid kit. After that, I went back to base and said, fuck it, I wanted this T6 pickaxe. The only problem was I didn't have enough forged steel, which meant that I had to reluctantly give Rex some more of my money. Ultimately, it was worth it though, because this pickaxe was basically the be-all, end-all. It made harvesting resources and completing missions much more efficient, so it was 100% worth the investment. With the new day, I hopped on my mini bike and drove to the next mission at the Brett residence. The shotgun put in work and I was able to tackle most fights head-on, but I used the environment where I could to help me out. This cluster of radiated zombies took a bit more finesse though. Juggling these 3 was a bit difficult since they all had different movement speeds and attack styles. In fact, the situation got really sticky at one point when my shotgun wasn't reloaded and this AK just wasn't CCing them. I did try my best to kite, but being trapped in a small hallway like this only left me with a few options. Luckily, I tanked the hit with only 3 HP remaining, and once I got some gap, I was able to reload and take him down.
What, you're gonna die?
Oh, 3 health.
That guy was scary.
I found a gun safe in the closet and finished mowing down the rest of the zombies to complete the mission. The final loot room was quite generous with ammo and magazines, and on my way home I snagged this airdrop for a magazine bundle. Rect offered me some high-power 44 ammo as a reward, and much to my surprise, I had completed enough missions to progress to T5, which allotted me a second reward of a chemistry station. This workstation was a bit bigger than most, so I had to modify a section of my base to fit it, but don't worry, I made it look as pretty as I could. This chemistry bench was great for crafting gasoline, gunpowder, and glue. Day 56 was a horde day, so I couldn't get involved in anything too crazy. I decided to use my auger to flatten out this section of ground between my base and Trader Rex, since it was really annoying to have to drive around it all the time. It took a while to dig it all out, and I had to fill in some holes here and there with dirt blocks, but by the time I had finished, it looked like absolute dog shit.
Disappointed!
At the time, I didn't know how to correct all these bumps, but I would find a simple solution later down the line. Back at base, I decided to finally make that cement mixer so I could start producing concrete, and then I spent the rest of the night finishing off the horde. Everything went according to plan, except I did decide to drink that grandpa's moonshine, which made me, and I quote, drunk as shit. In retrospect, this made hitting zombies significantly harder, so probably not worth it, but it was fun. With the game only getting harder and harder, I felt that it was time to finally finish off this force field in cobblestone. I had a bunch of it saved up, and lots more that I could craft, so the timing just felt right. I used this little shack behind my base as a mining bunker of sorts, so when I needed more stone, I could simply hop into here and mine more. Another thing I wanted to fix today was the top of my perimeter wall. I had noticed that some zombies could almost get over it if they stacked on top of each other and started jumping, so I wanted to fix that. Besides, these crumbled pillar caps were really ugly. I also crafted this box of shotgun shells since my ammo was getting low, and I was staring down the barrel of T5 missions now. Little did I know that this wasn't even close to the amount of ammo that I would need. By around midnight, I was finishing up with converting all the force field blocks to cobblestone, and I started to slap down some paint on the walls. Chemistry bench came in handy for mass-producing this stuff, although it wouldn't have nearly enough until morning. Speaking of which, I had everything fully upgraded come morning time, and all I had left to do was finish painting. I wanted these smaller strips of the force field to stand out more, both to make things more visually interesting, but also so I could easily tell if they had been broken. I settled on this metal red color because it just felt force fieldy, if that makes sense. Overall, I was really pleased with how this turned out, both structurally and visually. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe and smash that like button and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Okay, thanks. Anyways, I was burnt on base building and decided to head to the next mission at Gold Rush Station. Now, I was very familiar with this mission, and you should be too. This is the mission that was painstakingly brutal before and took me multiple days to complete, but this time around, things were different. I won't say it was a walk in the park, of course, especially when this screamer showed up with a horde that wasn't even part of the mission, but overall things went smooth. There was a noticeable power difference from where I was before and where I was now. I mean, if you think about it, I wouldn't have even stayed on the same level of ground as these zombies before, but now I was mowing them down like something that gets mowed down. You get the idea. Now, I still use ladder tactics at the end of the mission like last time, but unlike last time, it was simply to conserve ammo and not out of desperate need. The final loot room was complete trash again, so I hopped on my mini bike and drove home. The next morning, I turned in that quest for some lockpicks and reluctantly gave Rex some of my money. I bought a few Forged Ahead magazines and this Tier 4 lever-action rifle. This thing was a massive upgrade over the hunting rifle, holding up to 5 bullets at a time and having higher damage across the board. When I was heading back to base, I had an epiphany. I could use building blocks to flatten out this terrain, and then just simply pick them back up when I was done. It took a few minutes, but this method worked great, and I didn't have to stare at those ugly bumps anymore. I spent the entire rest of this day driving around the town and harvesting cardboard boxes. Why, you might ask? Because I needed paper for mass-producing boxes of shotgun shells, and this was the easiest way to get it. The stacks of cardboard boxes had the highest yield of paper by far, but they were pretty rare to come across. Long story short, I gathered enough paper to make 2 boxes of shotgun shells, which I reasoned would surely be enough for a T5 mission, right? Well, it was time to find out. I set course for the next mission at the Calm Inns, which was basically this spa resort located in the middle of the winter zone. First impressions were not great. There were tons of radiated zombies, and every fight was stressful, but you best believe I fucked up their seating situation. For the most part, everything was going fine, even when I got absolutely swarmed by this poolside. I knew the layout of the building pretty well at this point, and used all the hallways and doors to my advantage. I found this vending machine partway through that sold Grandpa's Awesome Sauce, which improves bartering by 10% when consumed. I knew this would come in handy later, so I decided to drop the 1500 dukes on it. By the next morning, I had reached the end of the mission, and I knew I was in for a fight. I was being forced to drop into this ventilation shaft, and while I knew it was going to be a complete shit show, I had no idea just how bad it was going to be.
Oh god. Oh my god!
Shit! So yeah, I failed the mission. But I figured since I was already at the end, I might as well clear this final room to get the loot. I mean, surely most of those zombies despawned when the mission aborted, right? No, there's still a metric fuck ton, and I got swarmed, and I died again. So the next time I decided that I probably should make an escape route. I mined through this doorway, that way I could kite them outside, and while in theory this should have worked, I got insanely unlucky with these bullets not slowing, stopping, or dismembering any of them coming after me. And, well...
Oh my god.
The next time around went better, though. It still took an ungodly amount of time to kite them and burn them all down, but eventually I got the job done. I won't say it was worth it, but the reward was nice. Tier 5 missions were definitely the way to go, but it was clear as day that I couldn't handle them yet. I was feeling pretty sick with myself for getting my ass kicked that hard, that many times in a row, but the game was about to throw me a life raft. When I got back to base, I finally popped some magazines that I had accumulated and unlocked something very special. The Tier 6 pump shotgun alone was exciting, but then I saw the unlock for the auto shotgun. This became my new top priority. The only problem was, it was extremely costly in the forged steel department. In addition to that auto shotgun, I also unlocked Tier 6 armor. Just like the shotgun, though, the armor pieces were really expensive, and it was becoming clear that I needed a solution to the forged steel crisis. I needed the Crucible mod, but I was a long ways away from unlocking it, which meant I needed to buy it. Now, something like this was going to be really expensive, but I had a plan for that. I just needed a little bit more forged steel to make my dream come true. Light posts could be disassembled for small amounts of steel, so guess what I did all night? Come morning time, I had enough steel to make my dream a reality. That dream was a pair of Tier 6 Enforcer sunglasses. When combined with the cigar mod, these things gave a whopping 30% bartering, which would make the Crucible mod drastically cheaper. 30% to be precise. The bartering effect of these glasses also stacks with that Grandpa's Awesome Sauce, so I would be getting a 40% discount on the Crucible when I found it. And so began the quest for the Crucible. On my way to Trader Jen's, I stumbled across a different trader wrecked. He didn't have the Crucible, but he did have some magazines and this sweet silencer mod, which I promptly put on my rifle. When I did make it to Trader Jen, though, the game gave me this strange but fucking awesome camera angle of her tits.
Fucking delicious.
Now, I'm not sure why this happened, but I'm not complaining, and before anyone gets offended, she was clearly into it.
Take your time looking.
Anyway, she didn't have the Crucible mod, so moving on. Come morning time, I had found my way to another trader wreck that was not my wreck, but alas, he didn't have the Crucible mod. Then I made my way to the one and only Trader Bob, and all of my prayers were answered.
Oh my god, Crucible.
Sitting in his inventory, just waiting to be purchased, was the Crucible that I had been so desperately searching for. I took a swig of that awesome sauce and bought the Crucible for only 8,250 dukes, a far cry from its normal selling price. Since I still had the buff running, I figured I should probably take advantage of it as much as possible, so I went on a shopping spree. I rode back to base and slapped that Crucible in my forge to officially unlock the forged steel recipe. One of the other things I purchased at Trader Bob's was this water filter mod, which could be attached to my dew collector to automatically purify the water. Since it was Horde Night, I decided to craft the Commando gloves first since they gave me a whopping 50% extra range damage. I had a ton of pistol ammo saved up that I hardly ever used, so I figured why not go a little crazy this Horde Night. Oh yeah, and by the way, it's Horde Night. Everything went great as always, I got a ton of XP, and the damage to the base was minimal. With the new morning came a new me. A lot of forged steel had crafted overnight, and I was ready for some upgrades. I made a Tier 6 steel spear, the Commando outfit, and the Commando boots before running out of legendary parts. I took some time to play around with the mods to get the best possible stats I could, and let's just say I was looking sexy as hell. And then came the big kahuna. The creme de la crop. The auto shotgun.
25 minutes? My god.
So yeah, the 25 minutes of crafting time was a bit harsh, but I made use of this time as best as I could. I rode around the city scavenging vehicles for gas and decided to break into this police station. Why? Because I had some time charges on me and I was bored. I figured it would be an easy score compared to what I was used to, and I was kind of right. I found the final loot room in the back of the station and used another time charge to break into it. Of course, I got swarmed by zombies at the end like always, but it was a walk in the park compared to what I was used to. The loot was meh, but it did keep me busy for the night while the shotgun was crafting. Now the shotgun still had some time in the oven before it was done, so I tinkered around the base. I had bought these spotlights from Trader Bob and wanted to install them around the perimeter. I had to use electric relays pretty frequently to link everything up, and in retrospect, I wish that I had maybe dug a trench or something to hide these. The spotlights were linked up to a timer so that I could set them to only come on at nighttime and last until morning. I also tried tinkering with some electric fences, but I don't want to talk about it. The auto shotty was done cooking and I was stoked to slap some mods on it. At its base, it can hold 16 shells, but after experimenting a little bit, I noticed that the magazine extender mod works on it, which boosted it to 24 shells. I figured that if this mod worked, then what's to stop the drum mod from also working? While I was crafting it up, an entire horde of zombies funneled right into my wall defense area, and I got to test out the new spear. Let's just say the investment was well worth it. When it was done crafting, I slapped that drum mod on my auto shotgun, which boosted its magazine capacity up to a whopping 32 shells. The perimeter lights were looking great, and overall everything was looking up since my most recent blunders. I was feeling pretty pumped and ready to tackle the next mission at the US Army Post number 7. The auto shotgun is so far above the other tiers of shotguns. It's like a whole other plane of weaponry, yet to be tainted by mankind. Now I did resort to my new spear where I could to save on ammo, but ultimately ranged weaponry was king in these late-stage missions. Slowing down, full stopping, knocking over, or dismembering zombies was the key to victory, and the plus 50% range damage from those new gloves didn't hurt either. I won't lie though, even with this new gear and amazing shotgun, this mission was more than my match. It took me about 20 minutes just to clear the courtyard of this building alone, let alone the massive interior. Now of course I took the time to hit them where it hurts, but that was before I realized just how seriously these guys took their seating situation.
Oh my god, the dots.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say they want their office chairs back. Anyways, after a long while of fighting zombies, I finally made it into the basement, and after a couple sneak attack shots, this happened.
Oh my god.
So I just want to quickly review here. At one point I found a container of red dye and thought, hey, that would look sweet on my shotgun, completely forgetting that anytime you modify a weapon in any way, you have to reload said weapon. This was a stupid death that was completely my fault. Moving on. I retrieved my stuff and gave this fight another go. For some reason, my character just refused to climb this ladder, and I thought for sure I was going to end up lying on the floor again, but the auto shotgun is an absolute beast and was able to plow through this horde before they killed me. Luckily, I had tons of meds on me to cure all the various ailments that they just stacked on me, but honestly it didn't matter a whole lot. You see, despite how careful I was being with approaching this mission and clearing out all of the rooms before me, somehow a horde managed to sneak up behind me while another horde pushed me from the front. Basically, I got hammer and anviled, and I died again. So even though this mission was long ago failed, I wanted that final loot room. I was absolutely plowing through my supply of shotgun ammo to take down this never-ending horde coming at me, and at the very least, I wanted to replenish what I had spent. But pretty soon I had found myself without any ammo left, and I had to resort to, we'll call them alternative tactics. Look, I was desperate and just trying to finish what I had started. But there was still hundreds of zombies and one lone bear who decided that he fucking hated me. It took me the entire night, mostly using my spear because I didn't have any ammo left, but I finally finished off the horde and came out on top. So by the next morning, I had finally made it to the loot room, and then this happened.
Why would there be shotgun shells? Of course not. Oh my god.
As a reminder, I'm completely out of bullets at this point, which meant that I had to rely on my spear, which meant that I was going to die.
Fucking delicious.
Anyways, I grabbed my stuff and tried heading back inside, only to come across this zombie direwolf actively chewing its way through bulletproof glass to get at me. I thought that maybe I could fight it off, but when the situation got too hairy, get it, I decided to bail. I figured I should probably retreat back to base and craft some more ammo before coming back here. Now during that mission, I did manage to find a legendary part, which let me craft the last piece of the commando set that I needed. After crafting up some shotgun shells, I drove the whole way back to that army base and fought off the horde with my shotgun and multiple stacks of dynamite. It's incredible how smoothly these fights go with ammo. Anyways, after multiple days of painstakingly grinding out hundreds of jacked radiated zombies, I finally reached the final loot room. The loot room of a T5 mission, mind you. A loot room full of endless potential, boundless rewards, and promises of— oh no, it was shit, never mind. It was day 69, giggity, and on my way back to base I found this airdrop that had 100 pre-made concrete blocks, which was actually pretty sweet. I still had to complete the achievement to harvest 5 honey from stumps, so while I was driving back to base I was constantly stopping to harvest stumps along the way. When I made it back to base, I decided to make the vehicle fuel saver mod. This mod was incredible for saving gas, especially since all of these missions I were pursuing were so damn far away. The rest of the day I spent driving around the town harvesting paper for shotgun shells. That last mission destroyed my ammo supply, and since paper was a bitch to make, it made sense to harvest it instead. This little warehouse area ended up being a gold mine for resources, and I would be lying if I said I didn't harvest everything of use while I was here. I found this nitrate vein shortly outside of the city, and combined with some coal that I had back at base, I had enough stuff to get some gunpowder crafting. I spent the rest of the day next door at the neighbor's house harvesting some more coal and paper in the basement. By morning time, I finally had the resources necessary to make some shotgun shells, but it was horde day and I had some plans. Those 100 concrete blocks I found were going to be put to use in some modifications. First, I flipped these stairs around so that they were leading out to the sides of the pit rather than towards the front. Then I moved these whole blocks since they would interfere with the changes I was making. Basically, I wanted to expand the staircase into a massive pyramid shape leading up to the walkway. It took me a while to get the shape right, so I mostly used regular building blocks and upgraded them for the first half. By evening, I had the shape corrected and the right side fully upgraded, and I simply copied the design on the left using those concrete blocks. I finished it just in time for the horde to show up, and man was it an improvement. Zombies were able to run up from multiple directions now, but were still funneled and looped by the base's design. Basically, this meant that I could kill more zombies in a horde night, which resulted in more XP and drops. Everything went off without a hitch, and the damage to the base was minimal. My shotgun ammo was done crafting at this point, pushing me just over 300 shotgun shells. With the other explosives and ammo that I had available, I felt pretty confident heading to the next mission at the Wasted Stiffs hardware store. Now, this mission wasn't easy per se, but compared to that last mission, it was a walk in the park. The final loot room was visible through this hole in the garage door, and what a cheeky-ass way of dangling a treat just out of reach. This hardware store was great for resources, especially paper. When I reached the final loot room, I took a moment to buff up as much as possible because I really didn't want to fail another mission. I used explosives where I could to make this fight easier, and then this happened.
Oh god! How did one get in behind me? Where did these fucking zombies keep coming from? Like, I cleared this area!
Slight inconveniences aside, everything went pretty well, and I was rewarded handsomely with ammo. And yet even more ammo. And yet even more ammo! I was hoping for some legendary parts, but I'll take ammo any day. I turned in that quest to Rect for a magazine bundle, and decided to open up this shotgun turret bundle I found.
Oh, there we go. Got a shotgun bundle. And that gave me a fuck ton of ammo. Oh, that's beautiful.
Feeling accomplished after completing my first T5 mission, I hopped on my mini bike and rode to the next mission at Grover High. This mission was, challenging.
Jesus Christ. Oh my god.
No matter how many zombies I killed, more just kept coming.
What the fuck?
I was chucking hand grenades, spearing bitches in the faces, and plowing through shotgun ammo, just struggling to keep my distance from the hordes of zombies pouring out from every direction.
Pretty sure I aggroed every single zombie in this entire skull.
But alas, I didn't even come close to aggroing every single zombie in that skull. In fact, I'm starting to think that these zombies weren't even really students. So I was actually able to step foot inside the skull by the following morning, which was kinda neat. There was still loads of zombies to kill, don't worry, but nothing like that initial rush in the beginning. I thought this gymnasium might change that opinion, but honestly it felt pretty chill compared to the fuck you amount of zombies I just fought. I found some more of Grandpa's awesome sauce in the school kitchen, and finally came across the final loot room.
Aww. I see it, Skippy. That's a nice looking chest.
And just when I thought I was done, I wasn't. There was one final massive wave of zombies, but I've done this song and dance before and knew the strategy. This time around I used Molotovs where I could to set them all on fire, which was pretty nice for some passive damage. I didn't even have time to celebrate though, because as soon as I finished the horde, a fucking screamer showed up and started it all over again. Anyways, the final loot room was pretty nice. I found loads of ammo and magazines, but unfortunately no unique items or legendary parts. What I did find, though, was confusion. You see, I had cleared the skull. I mean, I covered every square inch of this place, and yet the mission was still incomplete. It was only after I spent the entire night searching this place up and down for probably like the third time that I decided to consult the almighty internet for answers. According to Steam's forums, the game forums, and Reddit, higher tier quests like this are highly prone to bugging out. The reason this happens is because there's a certain progression that the player is meant to go through, like opening certain doors, pulling levers, going through hatches, you get the idea. but when there are a large enough amount of zombies in an area, like the never-ending horde that I just fought for 2 days straight, some of these triggers can get broken. Say, for instance, there's a door that I'm supposed to open, but the zombies break that door and it's no longer there. Well, that just broke the quest. So basically, there's no way for me to complete this quest that I've definitely just completed. My solution? I used cheats for the first time. I tried using the kill all command, but because the issue was a broken trigger, the zombies that were meant to spawn never actually spawned, so this didn't fix it. Ultimately, I went into the creative menu and found this item called a quest ticket that I could turn in place of the quest that I had just finished. Not ideal, but it's the best workaround I could come up with. Rekt offered me 50 forged steel for that quest ticket, and even though I could just make it at this stage in the game, it was still a nice reward option. I made some more shotgun shells and decided to make the tier 6 impact driver using legendary parts I found in that last mission. For as much gas as I was plowing through to travel between these missions, I figured it was necessary. It was a considerable upgrade over my last impact driver and sped things up a lot. Next, I pursued that treasure map that I found in the last mission. The auger made digging out the area super easy, and the reward was fucking awesome.
Oh yeah. That's a good stash.
I spent the rest of the night riding around disassembling vehicles for gas. Day 75 was here, and I had plans. You see, I was only 5 vehicle magazines away from unlocking the motorcycle, which was a goal of mine from the very start of this challenge. Now, since I knew I was going to be traveling between traders a lot, I decided to scrounge up a bunch of items to sell in case I found something valuable. I ended up with a grand total of over 22,000 dukes, which gave me a nice buffer to work with. I bought 2 vehicle magazines, some shotgun shells, and a Grandpa's Forgettin' elixir, which is basically a feat reset potion. I traveled to the next closest trader, which was also wrecked, but this one didn't have anything good. I marked my map for Trader Bob, who was fortunately carrying 2 more vehicle magazines. Now, there weren't any other traders that I knew of close by, but after exploring a little bit, I came across another Trader Bob. This one was useless, though, so I robbed his ATM and sold him back his own cash. Get fucked, Trader Bob! After a long journey to Trader Hugh in the Winter Zone, I just happened to loot this van on my way into his shop when this happened.
There's one in this vehicle.
It's a good thing, too, because he didn't have any for sale and I was out of options after this. I went back to base with a ton of magazines in hand and decided to do something a little bit crafty. I had this nerd outfit that gave a plus 20% chance of acquiring an additional point from magazines. Although I didn't need it to unlock the motorcycle, I figured it couldn't hurt for everything else. I did end up getting an extra point or 2 from the nerd outfit, but it was nothing game-breaking.
Motorcycles!
I was able to craft the motorcycle chasis, but unfortunately I couldn't craft the handlebars since I was out of duct tape. The next morning I checked Trader Rekt's inventory for duct tape, but alas he was useless once again. So guess what I did? I drove all the way to the other Trader Rekt, who didn't have any duct tape but was now selling 2 vehicle magazines. God damn it, Trader Rekt!
Disappointed!
So then I drove all the way to Trader Jen's, and while I did enjoy her massive tits in my face, she also didn't have any duct tape. So then I drove all the way to a different Trader Rekt, and why doesn't anyone sell duct tape in the apocalypse? At this point, I reasoned that I was better off just simply looting until I either found duct tape, glue to make duct tape, or bones to make glue to make duct tape. I was somewhat familiar with this Hogzilla ranch, and I figured that at the very least, I should get a decent supply of bones from the hogs that I'd killed. This POI was a breeze compared to what I was used to, with the exception of this massive zombie hog. After aggroing it, I lit it on fire with a Molotov, but I still didn't like my odds of surviving against it on the same level of ground.
Oh boy. Can't climb ladders, surely, right?
Luckily for me, it indeed could not climb ladders. It's a good thing, too, because this thing was an absolute bullet sponge, but it was worth it for the 3 duct tape. With all of the bones that I had collected along the way, I had enough resources to craft 22 glue in the chemistry station, which could then be converted into duct tape. I got the handlebars crafting in the early morning and decided to pop that feat reset potion while I was waiting. Now, I didn't make any dramatic changes to my build at all, but rather just invested things a little wiser. I still prioritized the spear and the shotgun, with a little extra emphasis on the rifle and better feats for looting and salvaging. By the time I finished all this, the handlebars were done crafting, and I was finally able to craft the coveted motorcycle. I just want to make a quick side note here that an entire motorcycle only takes about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to craft, whereas my auto shotgun took 25 fucking minutes. Am I the only one that thinks these crafting times are just a little bit off? Anyways, my new ride was done in no time, and it was just absolutely beautiful. I put all the mods on it that I could, and took it for its first little test drive.
Whew! Whew! Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, that's better doesn't even begin to describe how much of an improvement this was. I realize that this upgrade might not seem like that big of a deal as a viewer because I've cut out most of the traveling in this game, but this was just massive. But I didn't have too long to enjoy it because in case it slipped your mind, it was Horde Night. I made a few more modifications to the bunker that I thought might make things go even smoother. For instance, I placed these hole blocks behind the pyramid stairs to keep zombies away from them so they don't hit them. I also restructured the other stairs so that this pit was more like a valley, if that makes sense. Anyways, the Horde came, I fought them off, everything went great, and I got tons of XP and loot. Oddly enough, I found boatloads of duct tape, which sure would have been nice to have yesterday, god damn it, wrecked. But bitch, I was pumped! I had this sweet new motorcycle and was traveling at a smooth pace of 14 meters a second, whatever that means. All I know is that it got me to the next mission location at the right residence in no time. This place was sweet. It was a massive mansion with a giant bunker hidden underground. I won't say it was easy per se, but it was definitely the easiest Tier 5 mission that I had tackled so far. Granted, my gear was much better and my feats were allocated more intelligently, but I also feel like there was just less zombies in general. One thing about this place were the bookshelves. Dude, I found so many magazines, it was ridiculous. I kind of wish I had taken the nerd outfit with me just to take better advantage of them. Now, just because I had moved up in the world doesn't mean I was too good for my old tactics. I mean, imagine you're a zombie, coming back to your mansion, and you can't even find a place to sit down. Oh, get fucked. Anyways, the buried bunker beneath the mansion was pretty cool. There were color-coded pipes leading to shut-off valves that had to be turned in order to solve this mini-puzzle. I struggled to even call it a puzzle, really, but it was just a neat change of pace and kept things interesting. The final wave of enemies came barreling out of this garage door, but I expected it and kept my distance, using my advanced martial tactics and skilled gunplay to overcome them. Okay, I may have just used a few explosive barrels here and there too, but it was mostly gun skill. The final loot room was behind this steel bunker door, and let's just say that the rewards were generous. Boatloads of ammo, magazines, mods, crafting parts, but most importantly, 2 legendary parts. Now, I had already found 1 legendary part earlier in this mission, and if the maths, that's like 3 legendary parts I pulled in total.
Okay.
I reached Rex by early morning and turned in that quest for some contact grenades. Rex had a few fun items in his store, so I decided to give him some money. Things like the final spotlight that I needed, and these cute little lanterns that I scattered around the base. That stuff was just background noise, though. The real meat of today was mining. You see, I had finally found enough shotgun magazines to max out the skill, which meant that I could now craft Tier 6 auto shotguns. These shotguns were really expensive though, which meant that I needed to mine a lot of iron to refine into forged steel. I took the first batch of 5,000 back to base to get it smelting, before heading straight back out for another batch. I got cut short by this horde of zombies that attacked me though. Normally this wouldn't have been much of an issue, but I was really encumbered and wearing my mining gear at the time, so I just bounced. I spent the rest of the night tinkering with this alarm system for the base. I had never worked with tripwires and speakers before, so I didn't really know what I was doing, but after some tinkering I figured it out. This system would basically alert me if there were any zombies at my kill zones, because most of the time I couldn't see or hear them from inside the base. Speaking of which, my alarms went off the next morning when 2 screamer zombies attacked my base. I had a feeling that this deer was in on it, so I took him out to be safe.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
It took a long time to smelt, but eventually I had enough steel saved up to finally craft my endgame weapon of choice, the Tier 6 auto shotgun. Now this thing was going to take over 25 minutes to craft, just like last time, so I drove to the next mission at the Fates Motel. This mission was strange. It started off as a simple motel, but slowly transformed into this underground tunnel system. Have you ever seen the movie Vacancy? I got strong Vacancy vibes from this area. Except this place was full of murder! Anyways, the mission did turn out relatively normal towards the end, except for this one zombie that about gave me a heart attack.
Oh, God.
One time wasn't enough, though. I swear he just hid around the corner until I got close. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with these zombies? The final loot room was inside this hole in the ground, but don't worry, I already cleared the building so this drop was safe. I found loads of ammo, mods, weapon parts, and magazines, but the biggest score was this drone. If I'm being honest, my wife seemed more excited about it than I did.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Hell yeah.
Yeah?
I got a drone.
Yeah.
Hell to the yeah.
You got a drone.
I got a drone.
You got a drone. Yeah. Yeah, you got a drone.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Drones were fantastic. They provided extra storage capacity and had this neat little feature that would alert you if danger was around.
My senses have picked up something.
This actually came in handy a few times when I wasn't expecting to get attacked. For the most part, though, this little drone would live in my backpack, and I would only pull it out at the end of missions to help carry loot. I turned in that quest for another legendary parts, and went back to base to claim my fully crafted Tier 6 auto shotgun. This thing was a significant upgrade over the old one, both in stats and because I put orange dye on it. All of this got me so fired up that I decided to craft a Tier 6 steel axe in the morning. This thing was way better over my current one, and would make clearing missions that much easier. I hopped on my motorcycle and pushed the next mission at the town hall. This place was interesting. It had loads of vomiting cops, interrogation rooms, jail cells full of hookers and bikers, you name it. They even threw in a bulimic supermodel for equal representation. I happened to hit the jackpot here when I found this Tier 5 sniper rifle in the weapons bag. This thing was a massive improvement over my current rifle, boasting higher damage, range, rate of fire, and magazine size. It took me a long time to navigate through this POI, mostly because of situations like this where zombies were literally falling from the sky. By the following morning, I had reached the attic, and just like before, I was playing cautiously. Oddly enough, I ended up finding another weapon upgrade in a sports bag. Now, I didn't use pistols a whole lot, but I had loads of ammunition for them stockpiled, so I figured at the very least I could use it on Horde nights. The final loot room was located on the roof of this town hall, but I knew it was a trap. I kept my eyes on the ceiling above, so when the zombies dropped through, I could quickly get out of dodge. All in all, the final wave was kind of pathetic, to be honest. I mean, just compare this final wave to one of the other missions I completed. Anyways, I found lots of ammo and magazines, but the two big-ticket items were this compound bow, which I'd never used, and this treasure map. I hightailed it back to Rex for a magazine bundle, and spent an enormous amount of time banking my resources. I even had to make some extra storage crates because I was accumulating so much ammo, which I guess was a good thing. With the day only half over, I decided to immediately push the next mission at the Vanity Tower. This place was initially very misleading. It starts in a normal-looking garage and underground service tunnels, but soon develops into this lavish office building. An office building full of murder! The best way I can think to describe this place is Stark Tower. There's game rooms, balconies with pools, gym areas, apartments full of snakes, two dudes fucking on the floor, you name it. To say that this mission was long and daunting is an understatement. The layout of this tower kept me constantly weaving into and out of the building, sometimes ending up in elevator shafts or balconies, only to send me into apartments of doom death. One thing's for sure though, this tower was really unique, and the idea of being able to look down on floors that I'd already cleared gave a really cool sense of progression that other missions just simply didn't have. There were even a few really sketchy jump areas that kept me on my toes in between fights. Now I thought that when I had reached the rooftop and triggered this swarm of zombies, that this must be the final wave, but this was only a teaser. No, the real struggle was deep in this hole.
That's what she said.
I had no choice but to clench my ass cheeks and drop down inside, but initially nothing happened. It took a few moments before I heard the zombie noises, and then all hell broke loose.
Oh my god!
Luckily, I reacted quick enough and was able to put a little bit of distance between me and the zombies to funnel them into this hallway. It was an extremely close call, I won't lie, but the shotgun pulled through and bought me just enough time to get off a medkit and start popping some consumables to cure all those ailments. Even though I just mowed down every zombie in sight, the mission still wasn't complete. Before exploring any further, though, I wanted to reap the rewards. I found this legendary parts in the closet and started tearing apart the final loot room. As typical for a Tier 5 mission, I found boatloads of ammo, crafting parts, magazines, and meds. This hardened chest looked absolutely fucking delicious, but alas it didn't have anything special outside of another treasure map. But hey, the rewards were still pretty solid and I didn't die, so all in all this mission was a massive success. Oddly enough, the mission just self-completed the moment I walked into this hallway, which explains why I wasn't encountering any more zombies. Thankfully they had a ladder leading all the way down to the bottom, as otherwise this tower would have been a bitch to descend. I spent an ungodly amount of time sorting my inventory once I got back to base, but I'm a nice guy so I'll spare you the pain. What I will show you, though, is my crafting spree. You see, it was Horde Day again, and I had 4 legendary parts burning a hole in my pocket. I decided to craft a pair of Tier 6 biker gloves because they gave a plus 60% melee damage bonus, which would be great for the Horde. Next, I crafted a set of Tier 6 nerd goggles, which gave an extra 20% XP gain. Finally, I crafted a pair of Tier 6 farmer boots because they gave a plus 20% seed gain chance when harvesting crops. With the Horde fast approaching, I slapped on my new goggles and gloves and had probably the most successful Horde night so far. I gained a ton of XP and had barely any repairs to make in the morning. I turned in that quest for some armor crafting kits and made the bold decision to use my final legendary part to craft the farmer's outfit. This thing gave a massive 100% crop harvest bonus, which when combined with the boots would make farming a lot more productive. You see, I was starting to farm super corn because I was getting really sick of always being low on duct tape. Super corn could be refined into glue and then could be used to make duct tape, so at the time this made perfect sense. Don't get me wrong, these two items did work, but it was so late in the challenge at this point that I probably didn't even need to worry about it. I spent the rest of the day mining, harvesting vehicles, and mining again. In fact, I mined so much that I decided to make a second forge just so I could smelt iron and make cement at the same time. This forge couldn't smelt forged steel since I didn't have a second crucible, but I did have an anvil and advanced bellows to speed up production. Day 86 was here and I had some plans, outside of just doing some donuts on my motorcycle. You see, I only had 2 more challenges left to complete my original task of clean slating this board. The one challenge was to gather 1 more honey from a stump, which was no big deal, but the other one was to meet Trader Joel. I needed the opening trade routes quest to find him, which I would have to get from the highest tier trader that was available to me, which in this case was Trader Hugh in the Winter Zone. Just to piss me off, the game revealed to me that Trader Joel was literally 2 minutes away from my main base, but I digress. It was already getting towards the late evening by the time I reached him, but he made it worth my while. Joel was a friendly trader, unlike that asshole Wrecked. He gave me a magazine bundle for my troubles, and I decided to take a mission from him to help him out. Joel had quite a few nice items to sell, like this armor triple pocket mod, vehicle magazines, this robotic cargo mod schematic that I never ended up making, and oddly enough, boatloads of orange dye which I was on the lookout for. I was slowly dyeing all of my max tier items over to orange, simply because I liked the color, but also because the visual cue was a nice reminder of just how far I had come. Joel's mission was at this place called Don Vittorio Spaghetto Residence, and if you can say that without using an Italian accent, then you're a better person than I. This place was awesome. Think drug dealer from Breaking Bad, and you kinda get the vibe. This guy had pools, wine cellars, fucking bowling alleys, you name it. Honestly, this would have been a sweet house to reclaim as my main base. But Rich Guy House just doesn't cut it for a tier 5 mission, now does it? No, of course not. Just like the others, it was about to go off the rails, because what kind of mission would this be without an unnecessarily massive underground complex? There were buttons to unlock doors, catwalk sections, torture sex chambers, and a very Dr. Evil-esque office.
Sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads.
The final wave of enemies was interesting as always, but it wasn't anything that hundreds of shotgun shells and dynamite couldn't take care of. In the final loot room, I found this armor triple pocket mod, a security camera bundle, and boatloads of ammo. The big ticket item was this tier 5 auto shotgun, but mine was better because it was orange. There was one final room here that I desperately wanted to get into, and after a bit of searching, I came across some ductwork that dropped me down inside. Now the loot was fairly normal, but secret rooms like this really make this game shine compared to other survival games out there. I tried to make it back to Trader Joel's before nightfall, but he literally closed up shop just as I got there.
Trader Joel's is now closed. We have free coffee every morning, just before sunrise.
I climbed my way up onto the sign to keep me safe for the night, and good thing too, because I got fucking swarmed. Zombies, vultures, bears, oh my! Just like everything else though, they were allergic to lead. And explosives. In the morning, Joel offered me 5,000 gasoline as my quest reward, and I traveled back to my base to start my next project. I had big plans for the base over the next few days, and crafting this tier 6 auger was the first step. I was really sick of looking at these 3 buildings inside of my base walls, and with this sexy new tool in my hand, it was about time I took them out. It took me pretty much the remainder of the day to remove all these and clean up the debris, but I wasn't about to stop yet. I had plans to completely redesign the pathways and floor of my base before the end of the challenge, and well, you gotta start somewhere. Come morning time, my pathway idea was becoming more established. I started widening out the path from my door to the garage door entrance, but because the dimensions were different, I had to tweak it a little bit. I eventually ended up with this path that was 4 blocks wide, but I wasn't even close to being done. I wanted my whole base floor to be dug out and replaced with solid stone, both for durability and because I thought it would look cool. Because my paths run diagonally though, I ended up with this weird patch of half blocks, but sometimes ugly mistakes can lead to creative design choices, which is how this started to take shape. Make no mistake though, all of this digging and block placing was extremely time consuming, and before I knew it, the day had came and went. By the next morning, I had the blueprint for my other pathway complete. I used building blocks as placeholders and simply swapped them for cobble blocks as I went along. I made loads of mistakes along the way though, or had to change some of the blocks that were already part of this POI, which is why I waited until I had a good tool before starting this. Come nightfall, I had the floor fully cobblestoned and all of the pathways complete. With this new setup, I'd be able to drive straight through my base from the back, bank all of my items, and drive straight through the front to continue onwards. I had to reposition some of my turrets and rewire some things, but all in all it was pretty easy. At one point, an entire horde of zombies rolled into town and broke through my kill zone area, but luckily my turrets were operational at this point and I was well prepared. Attacks like this only further solidified my decision to make these changes though. The game was getting harder, and if I didn't keep up with the difficulty bumps, then I was really going to struggle. Come morning time, everything was pretty much complete, outside of a few touch-ups here and there with a paintbrush. Since it was Horde Day and I couldn't really go anywhere, I decided to keep up with the base improvements. Some of these walls had jail bars, while other ones were solid, and I don't know about you guys, but that kind of inconsistency makes my eyes twitch. This was a bit more work than I originally bargained for, though. Most of the blocks needed to be removed, replaced, and repainted in order to get the consistent look. I left the walls around the backside of my base solid, but I was able to finish all of the walls surrounding the courtyard by the time night fell. Overall, I was really happy with the way this all turned out. It looked better, it felt better, and would be easier to spot hordes moving into attack. I slapped on my nerd goggles and biker gloves for the Horde night, and once again had an extremely successful night of farming XP and loot. Nothing crazy happened, and the damage to the bunker was minimal. Rekt offered me a disgraceful set of reward options for that last mission, and I returned to base to make a few final tweaks here and there. Things like placing down the robotic turrets, replacing my little lanterns, and repositioning the dew collectors on this brick patio. Zombie attacks were becoming more and more frequent, but my alarm system and turrets were working pretty well. I wanted to refine both of these systems a little bit more, but after 3 straight days of base building, I needed to pull an Arnie. I hopped on my motorcycle and pushed the next mission at Fabel's Academy. It was another high school infested with the strangest demographic of students you could imagine. Everything was going great, and I even managed to find another huge upgrade, the Vehicle Supercharger mod schematic.
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
This was honestly like the last mod I was hoping to find before completing this challenge, as it drastically increases a vehicle's movement speed, and it's just an all-around fun mod to use. I did come across a few of these demolition zombies near the end of the mission, which are super dangerous and have to be handled carefully. I did accidentally shoot one of them in the chest and activate their C4 charge, but it actually worked out in my favor. The final loot room was on the roof of this high school, and while I was rewarded with loads of the usual stuff, I didn't find anything unique or notable. I completed that mission incredibly fast, which left me some extra time to travel around the wasteland tearing apart vehicles. On my way back to base, I harvested the last honey that I needed from this stump, which officially completed the entire list of challenges that I wanted to finish before the 100 days. Lastly, I just wanted to show off the completed vision that I had for this base. This new design was such a smooth flow over the last one, and I was really happy with the way everything turned out. I crafted that Vehicle Supercharger mod as soon as possible, and spent a few minutes strategically placing down some more turrets in my courtyard. That farmer gear that I made was still going to good use, and if this challenge was to continue on past the 100 days, I'm reasonably confident that I could have solved my duct tape dilemma through planting supercorn. Once the vehicle mod was done, I slapped it on my motorcycle and took her for a test drive. If you can't tell from that footage, this thing was wicked fast now, and I actually had to be careful in how I approached turns because of the increased speed and drag. I turned in that quest to Rekt for some armor crafting kits, and was given a second reward option for completing all of the challenges, to which I took the Wasteland Treasures book since I didn't have it yet. Being that it was still early in the day, and I was basically riding a fucking rocket ship at this point, I decided to push the next mission at the Minotaur Theater. The only thing steeper than the zombie count here were the ticket prices. Oh. But no, seriously, there were a lot of zombies. In fact, at one point I thought I was about to be puppy chow.
Oh my god. Ooh.
But heart attacks aside, this was a pretty sweet POI. I really enjoyed the look of it, and I love missions like this that kind of circle you around the final loot room. It builds the anticipation, but also lets you mentally prepare for that fight before you actually get there. Speaking of which, it didn't take me long to reach the stage and trigger the last wave of enemies. The shotgun mowed them all down, and I was rewarded with a bunch of ammo and magazines. I turned in that quest in the morning for 5,000 gas, and was given a second reward option for completing Tier 5 and moving up to Tier 6. Immediately, this gyrocopter parts bundle caught my eye, but after checking my skills, I realized that I was nowhere close to being able to craft it, even with the parts. What I was close to crafting, though, was the 4x4 truck. I took the shotgun bundle, since ammo was useful, and convinced myself that the 4x4 truck just had to happen before the end of this challenge. I only needed 12 more vehicle magazines to unlock it, and as I said before, I had a goddamn rocket strapped to my taint, so traveling wasn't much of an issue. The first Rekt didn't have anything, Trader Bob had 2, the second Rekt didn't have any, Jen had 1, and by the time I reached Joel, he was closed. I spent the night driving around the city looting mailboxes, which actually ended up paying off. Come morning time, I found this bank full of ATMs, so I took a few moments to break them apart and loot them. In total, it earned me over 3,800 dukes from this little detour, which more than paid for all the magazines I had purchased. Trader Joel was now open, but unfortunately he didn't have any magazines for sale, and I was out of trader options. I speculated there was probably another Trader Joel somewhere here in the wasteland, so I set out exploring in hopes of finding him. I didn't have any luck in this endeavor, but ultimately it didn't matter. You see, I was looting pretty much every vehicle and mailbox in sight, and after a long day of role-playing as a mailman, I had found enough magazines to finally unlock the 4x4 truck. I drove back to base as quickly as I could, and discovered the sticker shock of this thing's resource price tag. The chassis alone was almost 400 forged steel, not to mention all of the mechanical parts, electrical parts, duct tape, and leather. It's a good thing I've been so adamant about destroying everyone's couches, as otherwise this truck would have been a pipe dream.
Something's gonna happen,
By morning, the time had come.
Oh my god. I got my truck.
This thing was beautiful, and once all the mods were on it, it looked even more badass. Now I won't lie, I struggled to even get this thing out of my base because it was so big, but like any man with something massive, I just kept ramming it into the hole until it eventually fit. This thing was fast, loud, and imposing, plus the inventory size was massive compared to the other vehicles. As I was doing donuts with it, I also remembered that I unlocked the vehicle plow mod, so I crafted one up and slapped it on to take this thing from sweet to fucking awesome. This thing's imposing size and speed was also its downfall, though. You see, a vehicle takes damage every time it hits something, and given that this thing was the size of a small shed, that happened frequently. It was bad enough in forest areas because of rocks, stumps, and trees, but that was nothing compared to the wasteland. I mean, you can't move 3 feet in here without hitting some I-beams, cinder blocks, or trees, which basically meant I had to stick to open roads in order to travel. I couldn't navigate through smaller sections of roadways either, like this bridge for instance. With the motorcycle, I could have driven right between all this stuff, but with the truck there was just no way. Regardless, I crashed and clipped my way through the wasteland to the next mission at the Dr. Karen Higashi residence. Initially, this mission started off fairly normal, but like other missions, it soon went off the rails. I explored this massive underground medical facility full of elevators, escalators, and tight maintenance tunnels before finally finding the White River supplies inside of this glass cabinet. This mission loved its drop-down sections, and given that it was a T6 mission with, count them, 7 skulls, it was no joke. What was a joke was whatever the fuck was happening here, but who am I to deny a man's dreams? I clenched my ass cheeks every time this mission made me drop into the unknown, and for good reason. This section here nearly got me killed, but luckily the shotgun pulled through and medkits came in clutch. I did that up with a broken arm and had no way to cure it right away though, but this didn't last long. By morning I was able to craft the duct tape I needed to make a splint and fix my broken arm. I stole all of their office chairs and triggered the last wave of enemies in the final loot room. Dynamite came in clutch here and I thinned out the horde quite a bit. The reward was nice, although nothing too exciting. I found the last zombie jerking off in this linen closet and tore through the wasteland back to base. Now I was laser focused, completely undistracted by the hazards of the wasteland around me. Yes, it would have taken something immensely important for me to waver off course. Much to my surprise, when I got back to Rekt, I had a sleuth of missions to turn in. The reason for this was because the night prior, I had discovered a second tab for the challenge sections, and unbeknownst to me, I had completed quite a few of them. Now these missions were never part of my original goal for completing challenges, because I didn't even know they existed. After reading through the description for some of them, I'm reasonably certain I wouldn't have been able to complete all these in the 100 days anyways, even if I had known about them. On the bright side, I'm reaping the rewards of some of them now. When I got back to base, I decided to remove this rear garage door so that my massive truck could actually fit inside my base. The force field stopped zombies from walking into my base anyways, so this door was more of a cosmetic piece at this point. With those newfound legendary parts I've received from completing those missions, I decided to craft a tier 6 sniper rifle. Just like my shotgun, it took longer than a fucking 4x4 truck to craft. Day 98 was the final horde day, so I couldn't go embark on any crazy adventures. I tore out this other garage door and redesigned it like the rear one so that my new truck could fit through it. Next, I spent some time rewiring my base and adding additional turrets before revamping my security system with cameras. These things were much better than the tripwire cables because they could be aimed at certain areas and track enemy movements, although there were still a few blind spots with how I placed them. With the horde fast approaching, I decided to incorporate some electrical fences into my design. I had a battery bank and 6 tier 6 batteries just going to waste anyways, so I figured why not. These things made fighting off the horde even more efficient and reduced the chances of me getting slugged. The game was starting to throw some demolition zombies at me now, but I was pretty cautious with how I shot them as to not blow myself up. That being said, one of them did end up blowing up the trench, which did some damage. Day 99 was here, and I was raring to go. With only 2 days left in the challenge, I thought it'd be cool to gather up all of my valuables and complete these 2 final treasure maps to see how many dukes I would end up with. The treasure maps only took a few minutes to complete, with the first one giving just under 4,000 dukes, and the second one, oddly enough, not giving any. After selling all of my valuable items, I ended up with just over 68,000 dukes. Not too shabby, if you ask me. I killed a few more minutes harvesting vehicles for gasoline before heading to base to claim my Tier 6 sniper rifle. Yet another orange, maxed-out item to end the challenge with. As one final hurrah for this challenge, I decided to push one more Tier 6 mission at the Crack-a-Book HQ. This building was interesting. There were lots of narrow parkour areas running around the outside of the building that I had to use to work my way inside, and once I made my way inside, let's just say that I wasn't welcome.
Oh my god.
This mission was extremely tough, just because of the sheer number of zombies crammed into such a small area. I'm really glad I put an impact mod on my boots at one point, as otherwise this fall probably would have killed me. Now normally I skip over the amount of fighting that I do, but I want you guys to get one final look at just how many zombies are involved in these fights. And keep in mind, this is just the first floor. For the record, this footage is sped up to 2,000%. The second floor of this building wasn't any more forgiving, and at one point I found myself actively bleeding out and literally covered by a horde of businessmen. Somehow I managed to pull through here, but the mission wasn't over yet. Day 100 was officially here, and I was fucking locked in. This place wasn't even close to being cleared out yet, and I was on an absolute warpath. I thought that the bottom of this building was going to be the final wave, so I strategically step-stoned my way down in order to trigger it, but stayed out of danger. This worked surprisingly well and allowed me to use Molotovs to thin out the horde a bit. This was not the final wave, however. No, the final wave took place in, you guessed it, an underground section. While I thought I was handling things quite well, despite being stuck in a corner, the game set out to humble me. It was sending so many zombies at me that I literally drained my shotgun, drained my assault rifle, and was forced to reload my shotgun, only to die to a goddamn bleed effect.
Oh, shit, I bled out!
But hey, this challenge wouldn't be complete without one more walk of shame, right? It's a good thing that deaths were permitted in this challenge, because if I had made it this far and failed, I would have been furious. Funny enough, I died on the last zombie inside the last final loot room, which was pretty generous if I'm being honest. Ridiculous amounts of ammo, a T6 chainsaw, magazines, turret bundles, you name it. I drove back to base, emptied my inventory, and did one final assessment of my character's stats so you can see where I ended up. In my 100 days in this challenge, I managed to reach level 65 and died 14 times. I completed quite a few of the perk books in the game, with ample progress across the board on most other ones. The same thing goes for the crafting skills, but obviously there were bigger gaps here because of my choice of playstyle. I fully completed all of the basic challenges and completed well over half of the advanced ones. With day 100 officially coming to a close, I only had one more objective in mind to end off this challenge. It was really stupid, but I got a good laugh out of it because of how clunky this game can be.
What the fuck?
Anyways, that concludes my 100 days journey and 7 days to die. This was a massive undertaking for me as a creator, and while I tried my best to trim the footage as much as I could to shorten this video, I feel that some things just needed to be left in. At the end of the day, I make these videos to express my creativity while striving to entertain you guys in the process. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to leave it a like down below, subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you can stay up to date on all of my latest content, join the Discord for a community of like-minded woodland creatures, and please keep leaving me comments because they warm my little Bunneh heart. A special thank you goes out to all of the Bunnehs who support me on Patreon. You guys are amazing, and if you would like to support me and the content that I create, you can now do so for as little as $1 a month. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.